Good evening, everyone. Today is Wednesday, December 17th, 2025. This is a meeting of the Gloucester School Committee. I will call this meeting to order and state that the mission for Gloucester Public Schools is for all students to be successful, engaged, lifelong learners. We can do a roll call vote as to who is present. We'll start with those attending online, Melissa and Keith.
Yeah. Melissa Prince, School Committee.
Yeah, Keith Minio, School Committee.
Okay.
Stephanie DeLisi, Recording Secretary.
Greg Bergen, Mayor. Bill Melvin, School Committee.
Kathy Clancy, School Committee.
Laura Wiesen, School Committee.
Ben Lummis, Superintendent.
And I ask that you join me in this pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So we are going, we've had a reordering of our agenda. We are going to go into executive session to start the meeting instead of having it at the end. And we'll come back out and begin our regular other business on the agenda. So I move that we go into executive session pursuant to executive session purpose 2 of Mass General Law 30A, Section 21A, to discuss strategy and or to conduct contract negotiations with non-union personnel, and purpose 3 of Mass General Law 30A, Section 21A, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining with ASME Clerical Unit A and Clerical Units, ASME Clerical Unit C.
Second.
Okay, we need a roll call vote, please.
Mayor Verga.
Yes.
Mr. Minio.
Yes.
Ms. Prince.
Yes.
Mr. Melvin.
Yes.
Chair Clancy.
Yes.
Ms. Wiesen. Yes.
Okay. So you'll put this on hold.
Video.
Okay, we're back in open session. And the next item of business is oral communication. If there's anybody present or anybody online that would like to speak to the committee, now is your opportunity. I can read the rules, but I don't see anybody that wants to speak, and I don't see any hands online. So we will move on to recognitions. Anybody have anything they would like to recognize?
I will.
Yep.
I just want to recognize, as I do every year, the Beeman Holiday Store, which is a beloved Beeman tradition, which happened last week, which is a tremendous amount of work for the PTO and for staff, and something that kids really love. And I just want to recognize everyone who made that happen.
I just want to recognize the East Vets Christmas Fair or Holiday Fair that they had. It was terrific. I was over there. I happened to be over there on Saturday, and the place was banged out. A lot of local artists, you know, selling their crafts, and it was really, really well attended. So great job by the PTO, East Vets.
Okay. Our student advisors are not able to attend this evening. We will move on to the consent agenda. Does anybody have any items they would like to remove from the consent?
I move that we approve the consent agenda as written.
Okay.
Okay, moved and seconded. Roll call vote, because Keith is online.
Mayor Verga.
Yes.
Mr. Minio.
Yes.
Mr. Melvin.
Yes.
Chair Clancy.
Yes.
Ms. Wiesen.
Yes.
Mr. McKee.
Yes.
You want to make a comment about the consent agenda?
Yeah, I just want to make a comment that to the public that there is a wonderful approval of a scholarship in memory of Christopher J. Bailey. And a lot of the community members have helped support this particular scholarship fund. And there was a beautiful ceremony retiring his number at the beginning of the Gloucester High School hockey game this weekend.
This is a scholarship for six scholarships.
Yes,
This is really quite generous.
very generous. Okay, move on to deliberations on education issues and the superintendent's report.
Great. Hello, everyone. Good evening and welcome. So we're going to have a few things tonight. I'm going to hold my superintendent's report. You have some guests and our partners at Wellspring. And then we'll have a superintendent's report, and then we'll have a attendance update. Students and staff. So we'll get into that. And so, very happy to have Ms. Diamond and Alan and Carolyn Kerwin here from Wellspring, some great partners. We, as you know, we partner with a bunch of fantastic agencies and organizations in town or in the city, Wellspring being one of them. And like we like to do is have some folks come and form the committee and update the community about that partnership work. So probably John Farrell up here too, is he's part of the high school, or reps in the high school. At least this, maybe sit up here and just look good. Right, good. Right. Anyway, listen, thank you for being here. Thank you for being patient. If you introduce folks, or just start and I'll show the presentation and tell me when to get going with that.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Superintendent, and it's great to be here. Great to see people I know and meet people I might not know as well. I'm Melissa Diamond. I'm the Executive Director at Wellspring. Our headquarters are here in Gloucester. I've lived in Gloucester since 1999. So I think I'm here to stay. And our mission is to help people achieve financial security. And where that ties in with the high school is really looking at what people are doing after they graduate from high school. So I'm here with my colleagues, Andy Allen, who's our Director of Education and Career Pathways. Andy's had a career in K through 12 education himself, and has also been an instructor at Salem State. And Carolyn Kerwin is one of our 2 full-time staff that are here in the high school all the time. And Carolyn is our advisor who focuses more on the career side, more on the trades side. Both of our advisors can meet with any student, but we have a colleague named Stacy who's more focused on an academic track, folks who might be applying to college. Carolyn can also do the same, but is starting to be more fully embedded in the CBTE program. And it's been a goal of ours for a long time to be in as many aspects of the high school as possible, to connect with as many seniors as possible who, well, even before their senior year, who may not have a viable plan when they are finishing school. And how we got to just go to the next slide.
Yeah.
How we got to doing this work. This is our 10th year being in the school, and we now so excited that we have 2 people who are here in the building almost all the time. We were working with folks who were in their 20s, mid-20s, late 20s, who very clearly had not had help when they were in their mid to late teens. And so our question was, who wasn't there? What wasn't happening when you were in high school that might have prevented a much more difficult road? And so 10 years ago, it was when James Cook was new as the principal at the time, and that we started to got that going. And our goal,
Next one.
so you can see, Superintendent Lemus and I talked about this many, many times. The goal, we believe, you understand, for the district is every student who walks across the stage at graduation knows what their next step is. They don't need to know what they're doing the rest of their lives. We try to reinforce that. You need a next step. And our goal as a mission, as an organization, is so that people will ultimately be on a path where they can be financially secure into adulthood once they are having children, having more financial needs. And one clear tenet for us is the career readiness piece. People having the life skills and the tenacity to explore and really try to get to know themselves and what some good options might be. Next slide. So what started as more of a workshop based sort of presence in the building, trying to capture students who might need us, we're now fully embedded. So we actually start at the beginning of the school year in one of the English classes called Reading and Writing in High School. So our career advising curriculum sits inside of that class. So students are getting to know us all year long, and it helps us identify students who would likely also need more one-to-one support. So then our staff can do more concerted advising and mentoring around particular issues. The goal again is so that everyone we're working with has a viable plan for their next step, whatever that might be. And starting last year with Carolyn joining the team, definitely can ask questions and Carolyn can tell you more. We've been getting much more present in the shops in the CVTE program. And we believe that that's a really important part of our role. We want, just like the school, just like the high school, we want more folks to finish from that program. We know that a good number are entering CVTE, but not as many folks are completing the CVTE program as we would like, and we want to be part of maintaining those numbers. I believe that some of that has to do with folks not knowing that the confusion about, well, I don't know if I want to be a carpenter the rest of my life. These are amazing skills. You can take this skill and do the next thing, and the next thing you don't need to know about the rest of your life at this point. And so seeing if we can help people persist in that part of the high school. And then we meet regularly with the principal, John Perella. We meet more regularly with Laura Carlson. We're considered part of the guidance team. That's what allows us to be here on a regular basis. So I already mentioned sort of how we exist in the building. We're embedded both through the English department and through CVTEs. Folks already know with the addition of the medical assisting track, because there are 5 tracks now in the school. There is an exploratory course where students are being exposed to multiple shops, and Carolyn actually co-teaches that class. So that means that students are getting to know Carolyn and Wellspring early on. They're not ready to talk about their steps after high school, but we're getting to know them to build those relationships over time, so that by the time they're juniors or seniors, they're more likely to persist in the program. And we are so fortunate to have office space in the building. It means that a teacher or a guidance counselor can actually say, have you met Wellspring yet? Let me show you where they are. It means a student that we might meet in shop or in class can come and work with us outside of that time. We're really grateful to have that space. And then just as a snapshot, so this is last year. These are seniors. We worked with 78 seniors last year, so it's really a huge proportion of the total class. And we're happy to do it and would love to keep doing more, but just shows you how it breaks down. You know, so last year was our first year being embedded in CVTE, so there's 6 seniors that we worked with. As the number of seniors increases, and as we know more students, it's already more than that this year. The kinds of things that we're able to help with, that we help students prepare for internships, prepare for their interviews for internships. So we're assisting students who are applying for internships at Applied Materials or Gordon. So we're helping to do the more intensive prep around those opportunities. Helping them think about employment opportunities after graduation, if they have a job now or they want a job, helping them just have better life and work experience heading into their next steps after being here. One advantage of folks getting to know us at this stage is that when they finish their K through 12 experience, they can still come to Wellspring, because we work with folks of any age. So someone who is no longer at the high school can continue to come for resources and coaching at any point. And I'll talk in a minute. We have 2 different scholarship programs as well. So when we did follow up, we stay in touch with folks at least a couple times a year. So we want to know, you know, not only what did you say you might be doing when you were graduating, but later on, you know, so over the summer, and then we get back in touch with people in the winter. So we were able to connect with 85% of the folks who we worked with, and they all had something very concrete that they were doing. And it might have been work or the military or being in a 2 or 4 year college or entering a trades program. But something that we would consider to be a viable plan, that's a reasonable next step. So we're really excited about those results, and we want to keep doing more. And then we are really fortunate to have 2 different kinds of scholarships, one of which we've had for a long time and one of which is newer. Our goal this year is to get to a point where we have 25 students at any given time who are utilizing scholarship funds. So we'll be adding, I think it's 6 or 7 graduating seniors this year. So we have one scholarship program that's really substantial. It's $10,000 a year for 4 years. And it's sponsored by an anonymous donor here in Gloucester. And our goal was to get this off the ground so that we could then attract more donors over time to have more students in the program. And so as of this coming June, there'll be 20 students at a time. We have 16 right now, and they're all different years. So in June of 26 will be our first year having students who we've known since their senior year at Gloucester High, graduating from college, who we've been coaching this whole time. And we're coaching around all kinds of things. The thing to know about our scholarships is these are not scholarships for folks who are getting all the other scholarships. These are scholarships for folks who really need extra support or perfectly able to be successful and have a lot of aptitude, but whether it's financial barriers or language barriers or they're raising themselves, they're here without their parents, a parent passed away, whatever the critical issue is, that means that they don't have all of the support that we would want a young adult to have. They get to have us with them throughout their time. And altogether, between that significant scholarship and a smaller scholarship, which is more like $3,000 to $4,000 a year, we'll be at about 25 a year starting in June. And what we do to help people know about that is the stipulation is that students are working with us. And so out of that, 78 or folks who we might have met in their junior year, where our goal is to make sure they know about these opportunities and are applying for them. And we're looking for folks who really need us. If it's somebody who has numerous other scholarship opportunities, we're probably not going to award the scholarship to them. We're looking for folks who really might not be successful without. Then just to look at what did these 78 students do, or what are they doing? The next slide.
Here we go.
It's hard to read, but you can see the largest portion is folks who are going to college, 4-year school. Then the next biggest wedge is a two-year college, followed by trade school. Workforce, meaning they're in a job, but it's a career-based job. So it might be that they're getting work experience, but it's with something concrete in mind. Military gap year, and some folks are working because they just need the money and they need to do the best they can while they're working on a longer term plan. So they might be wherever it is, working at an establishment here in Gloucester while they're figuring out what's next. So, thank you for your time. What I hope is that you'll know that we're here, that we're an important part of the fabric of the high school, especially for folks who are thinking about what they're doing next. In my dream of dreams, there'll be a time when people cannot imagine that Wellspring ever wasn't in the building, and that people will understand that this is just how we do things here, so that seniors who are graduating can have the best shot at success.
Does anybody have any questions? I have one question.
I only have one myself.
Is it
I
okay?
defer to you.
First of all, this is amazing. I had no idea. Does Wellspring fund the staff here? So that's coming from your funding?
Yeah, currently, yes. So we have had at times a collaboration with Gloucester Ed Foundation earlier in time to help us fund a pilot. So there were 3 years where money went from the Gloucester Ed Foundation to the schools, and the schools contracted with us. One of the things I would really like us to be looking at long term, because we want to work with more students and we want to be here ever more, is as the state is really amping up its discussion and conversation about helping districts to be career ready. I would really like to work with the district on opportunities to do some partial funding. We have a lot that we can show and teach other districts. Very uncommon to have an outside partner that's partnering with a district in this way. And so we do currently fund through mostly a combination of donations and private foundation grants that we write. Over time, we're going to need to think about partnering. And so that's something that I think the environment is ripe for us to be looking for opportunities, because the state itself is so focused on this.
What a good time with the exploratory program. I mean, it's such a good moment to sort of, you guys sort of front and center with that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
The Terrific presentation. I think I was somewhat aware of Wellspring's involvement at the high school, but I'm a big fan of, outside organizations kind of augmenting what we're doing here in the high school and really helping us out. And I couldn't be any more impressed with the presentation. The one thing that kind of stuck out to me is there a vision at Wellspring to say, hey, I don't want to grab too much of it, but what else can we do? How can we expand our program within the school? Like, what are the, is there a long-term, this is great, but is there a long-term kind of what else can we do type of vision
You
there?
want to do even more.
Yeah, well, we can ask that,
Just last year, we weren't in the shops at all
Yeah.
until November of end of November, December of last year.
Yeah.
So what I would,
We're also going in to work with the multilingual learners
yes,
Yeah.
in a real way.
Right,
So it's identifying areas of need within the school, working with Dr. Torella,
Yeah.
with Laura Carlson, with Brenda Waslick, and their various teams to make sure, I don't want to step on anybody's toes, but
Right.
if there's obvious need. And so far, these CBT shops and the ML programming, working with Sabrina and Vanessa, it's a huge collaboration and augmenting what they can do and enhancing the services guidance can't always provide because they're stressed in too.
Mhm.
So we're trying to make sure that the students are getting what they need and we're still finessing how it all happens. I go into the shops every week on a rotational basis, but like right now, we have the applied materials internship. Student just had her interview today. We were doing prep, even though she's in the auto shop and normally I'm in there on Mondays. I would find her every day and say, okay, what do we need you to do today? Are you ready? What are your questions? Let's practice kind of thing. And now I'm doing the same thing with 3 students who are applying to the Gorton's internship. And I've got one from auto, one from carpentry, and one from electrical that I'm working with. One has their interview Friday. I'm meeting with them tomorrow at 11:30. So it's this kind of thing. So it's figuring out what are the ebbs and flows within CVETE? How can I help? Collaborating with the teachers, building the relationships so the kids trust me to work with me. And we get some good stuff done.
I think if you look at us, we magnify the work, the existing work that's happening, and we take our lead from the individuals within the building. So if there's another aspect or opening that needs done, then Wellspring feels comfortable doing it. I can speak towards, so I'll do to a degree. We know that those individuals in English for speakers of the languages might need a little bit of additional support. So we're able to do those things in multiple ways.
and I think you answered the question perfectly. It's really what I was looking for. Like you said, we're getting involved with English language learners. And it's really, really great stuff.
we're looking to work with students who, without the extra support, may not get where they really want to go.
Right.
And we know that it takes time, that the school by itself can't cover all of it. And so the question is, where can we show up and have the most value for students that can really respond to the help that we can provide? I would say I'll be really happy in 3 years, 4 years, when the number of students entering the senior year in CVET is up and they're finishing from CVTE, and we're all thrilled that the shops are full and students are really making use of those opportunities there. Students in those programs are headed for very decent wages. And so if they can, graduate with some of those skills, it's gonna be a really helpful tool for them. So that, we haven't done a lot of work yet in a more formal way with the multilingual learners. So that's an area where we'd like to do more if the school wants us to be here and doing that. So those are some.
Thank you very much.
I have a quick question. Parents, so what is your interaction or what is the reception from parents in terms of, I just know some parents are really good about helping their kids along and others just, aren't, or second, kids may not listen to their own parent, but they listen to somebody else. So I'm just curious what your interaction might be with parents along with that.
It's a great.
I haven't had a ton of parent interaction. One-on-one sometimes would be a Zoom call, helping them with the financial aid forms, FAFSA and things like that, maybe scholarship questions, occasionally an application, mostly college related. Right now with some of the kids that I'm working with around some of these internships in the shops, like one of them's like, yeah, my mom looked at the list of questions you gave me that I need to prepare for, and she's quizzing me all the time. I'm like, great, so when I see you tomorrow, you're gonna be able to, you do it right away. So it does vary, when working with the multilingual learners, we really want to make sure they understand what we're doing with their students and how to navigate this crazy system of continuing training or going out into the world of work or whatever the option is that their student is choosing. So that's evolving. It's working with Sabrina and Vanessa, we really want the whole family to understand, because some of the things we're doing has whole family impact.
I think in terms of scholarships, when you're giving a student $40,000 over 4 years, parents really tend to want to know exactly, and they don't know necessarily. I know when I first filled out the FAFSA for my own children, I'm like, yeah, I have no idea what this is. But I think, they come, my rule of thumb is that I talk to the graduate. I talk to this high school student. I empower the student to bring their parent if they want to, so the parent can learn and ask questions and be a role model for them. What we have found is typically in sophomore year, several students, they hit the bump of like, okay, I've hit my GPA, but I want to buy a Clipper card, or I want to buy money towards food, or I want to buy a brand new camera. And that funding can be used in different variety of ways. So parents tend to ask a lot of questions, but if a parent calls and they ask a specific question about a scholarship, what I tend to do is, thanks for calling, let's set up a time for your child and you and I to have a conversation if it's okay with them. And what I find is they like that. The students enjoy the autonomy to be able to speak, and the parents are very happy with the opportunity to have conversations with us.
One of the advantages of being in the school is we're considered part of the program that the school is providing. And so it means we don't need a separate consent from parents. If we were outside the building, if they were coming to Wellspring, like a totally different story. And so it's one of the reasons why it's important to be here, so that we can fit in as the school wants us to be here. A parent doesn't really need to know that, not that there's anything to hide, but the student can access this service as they would anything else in the building. When we happen to get to know parents much more is actually typically around the scholarship side. We have a celebration and orientation every June for anyone who's receiving a scholarship, and they usually come with their parents.
Yeah, but Karen,
No, go ahead.
no questions, but just comments. So first of all, thank you all for being here, and thank you for all that you do, because you do so much for our residents and beyond every day of the week. And I think it's public sees that you're right here in our schools every day of the school day, or of the school week. How can people learn more about Wellspring? Just a plug to throw out your website, so people know where to go look and see what you do, and see how they might get involved.
Yeah, well, certainly our website, and we actually just retooled the website, so it's much more focused on the person utilizing our services. You can use the website in multiple languages. One of the things about the way that we do a lot of the work that we do is we are embedded behind the scenes. And so sometimes folks don't know that we're doing as much as we do, because we're here in the schools, or we're embedded at Salem Hospital doing a job training program in healthcare. And so really, wellspringhouse.org is a good way to get started, and can call, any of us, or email us at contact@wellspringhouse.org. We answer those emails every day. And then generally I would say if someone doesn't know for sure, if they can get help from our services, just ask, and we'll make sure that they get pointed in the right direction. What I love about working in this community is that the nonprofit organizations are incredibly well connected and interconnected. And so if there's something that we don't do, someone else is probably doing it, and vice versa. And so we can make sure that they're gonna get the help that they need.
Right, and two final comments. One is, I love that you're working so closely with the vocational program, because it's something in my 4 years as mayor, I've been working hard to expand and strengthen. And this committee for the last several years has been, before I got here, was doing the same. So
Yes.
anything you can do to help boost the number and have people complete the program is a real plus. The other thing though that really caught my ear was when you're talking about scholarships, that you focus on those kids who might be getting skunked on the other ones, because that's a difficult thing. When parents fill out those forms, the kids fill out the scholarship forms, then on awards night, nothing
they don't get called. And you've given them a scholarship, could be the difference between them going or not,
Yeah.
and really jumping right in to the next step and having a plan. So thank you.
Yeah, great, thank you, I'm excited about it.
Just to wrap up, a couple things, want to appreciate first of all for coming tonight, Melissa and Andy and Carolyn, but also a couple things, schools typically, including ours, aren't great partners without organizations. And then one of the primary reasons for that is because all our folks in any school, especially our schools in the high school, like they all have full-time jobs, teaching or leading and that sort of stuff. And so there isn't typically much more space in our staff's jobs to partner, to do outreach, to connect with the outside agencies, outside employment, that sort of stuff. Brandon can do some of that with CBT, but the fact that Carolyn's here now doing more of that, and also the prepping of students, because our teachers are teaching to have an additional prep, really is a great thing for a partner to do. So really appreciate, and then also partnership isn't easy. And so this is really the work as a number of years of refining of you and your staff, the three of you and more, our staff, seeing what works well, what doesn't work well. There have been some challenges along the way, as there are in any partnership grows.
Yep.
But really feel right now that we're hitting a sweet spot, and that's supporting students in a variety of ways. And I wanted Carolyn to be here tonight because of the new work with VOTEC, and some of you saw some early stages of her work because she was helping with the portfolios last year. And so we saw some great presentations there. So, but it continues. And gosh, and also just love the idea of 4 years of scholarship and coaching, because who doesn't coach it, right? So just want to acknowledge just that it's partnerships are challenging with any organizations, and we really honed this over time, and it seems really common right now. So really, thank you so much.
Thank you for sticking with us while we refine and refine and refine.
There's one more thing I do want to share that Wellspring does, and this is something that I've got experience a couple times in a row, including yesterday or 2 days. Yesterday was. This is I'm going to lose the words here, but the Cape Ann
Kids Holiday Campaign.
Yes.
Yes.
Which is a great a combination of multiple organizations, Pathways, Wellspring,
And Action.
And these is available through Action's website for folks and Wellsprings and Pathways for families to literally shop, for free, to get toys for the holiday season, toys and gifts for the holiday season. And I call out Wellspring because they're in charge of all the volunteers that do all of the operations behind this, including creating this fabulous store. What you can't see is that under the tables and in back rooms over at Pathways are more and more of these gifts and toys. So
678 families.
Wow.
Shop this year. So.
Over 1,600, I think.
1,600 kids.
Kids benefit from all this work. So Wellspring helps us. They help in so many ways around the community. We appreciate all of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Perella.
Amazing work.
Looking good.
Looking good.
Good job, Sid.
Well, Amy sets up the next cruise here. And then my students report to sort of zip through a little bit, okay? Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Go here, share. So, yeah. So as you're really part of what Wellspring is talking about, just everyday matters, everybody belongs, every student learns, and particularly trying to help kids be ready as they leave the graduation there. So just a few updates on my report. The school staff surprised Ms. Angie, especially decorated tree for her. There were a lot of photos from I think all staff there. They also preschool displaying the gingerbread houses that the kids created as part of the gingerbread unit. And this is appropriate, right there, appropriate for this time of year, but all times of year preschool. Preschool is not a silent place, which is right on. And it's only silent at night. That is indeed true. They just do great. The staff there and the kids help out with some great vocal work there. So these veterans, what this is, what you see, and I'll try to. It's sort of zoomed out there. It's a photo taken by me. What you're looking at this is a third grade, what I need in intervention time at these veterans, okay? But a lot of things going on here. One thing you can see if you look closely is the doorway, the sliding doors between, or sliding wall, I should say, between the two classrooms is open. So you have teachers, sharing students here. You have students over here working at, with a teacher. What you can't see in the other classroom is there's another teacher table at work as well. But you also see, Mr. Fusco here, I believe this is teacher Megan Chalupo, special education teacher. They're part of a learning walk that I also participated in. So what East Veterans held was probably about 10 staff members, teachers, special education teachers, administrators, myself, the learning walk to go to classes looking for engagement, looking for good teaching practices, some focus areas that East Veterans is working on. So just a nice, you also see kids working on their own, and they're doing some individual work as well. And typically, some of these folks aren't on a learning walk, you'll have 3 or 4 teachers and a para working together across these 2 classrooms. And so there are more teacher tables typically. I just want to show that that's a sort of a multi-use moment there at East Veterans yesterday, which I was able to participate in and really enjoyed seeing many classes there. So, Beeman had their holiday store again this year, as Laura mentioned. So again, just so many kids benefiting, so many people helping out. Whether it's the Cape Ann Kids store there, or whether it's the Beeman store. A lot of generosity, but that also takes a lot of work too. So I really appreciate all of the families who helped out with that. Tomorrow night is the O'Malley and high school concert here at the auditorium here at the Gloucester High, starting at 6:30 p.m. So folks will come out for that. I'm looking forward to seeing that, as it's always one of the best nights of the year usually in our schools. Gloucester High, so we have 40 GHS mental health ambassadors. They were over at O'Malley and set up a lunch table and distribute green bandanas for kids to tie on or put on their backpacks as a visual reminder that if kids are struggling, they can reach out for help. The high school ambassadors gave out 988 swag. What is 988 swag, Amy?
988 is the crisis line first.
Oh.
Great. During the lunches at O'Malley. And there you have both the, I think, high school students behind and middle school students in front. So really, again, another example, as we always point out, of older kids working with younger kids, and that interaction where kids learn so much from that. Cell phones and social media. So we launched the Healthy Phone Habits Family Network. That's a working title, working name, but really appreciate the about 13 adult parents, as well as Principal Perella. Amy Cam came out. Mr. Titus is also going to be part of this as well. And this is parents helping parents and us working with parents to help other families support families supporting other families. We have some also organization from the schools and from the Gloucester Health Department on raising kids in this fully connected digital age, which is really complicated for everyone involved. That's our next organizing meeting is January 13th at East Veterans School at 5:30 p.m. So looking for a core group of organizers to help launch this. Right now, we're just working through what our purpose will be, what the goals will be, and some of the work we want to do to support parents. And then as Kathy mentioned earlier, just really want to acknowledge the wonderful evening we had at the boys hockey home opener at the Talbot Rink, where we retired Chris Daly's number 18 jersey. There's a standing room only crowd, the biggest crowd I've seen there. Really remarkable turnout, showing so much love and support for the Daly family. Coach Geary spoke. It was a video presentation. Chris's family, Nicole, Rich, and Rachel were given his away jersey by, I think it was last year's captains. And then you see a picture there of his sister Rachel doing the ceremony of the puck drop. And as Kathy also mentioned, it was also a part of the development of the Chris Daly Memorial Scholarship Fund, which you approved tonight. Just want to point out that the amount of those 6 scholarships will be $2,518. 25 the year that Chris graduated, 18 is jersey number, so 2518. So, and just really in talking with the Dalys, they just and also communicating with them just recently, just really acknowledged again the love and support that they felt, and we're so deeply appreciative of it. Really a wonderful night there at O'Malley, and so much support that they are continuing to get from the community. There, that's what we have tonight for my report. And we'll move on to the attendance report. Get that up here. So, tonight we have one moment. A bunch of folks here. So, and they'll introduce themselves as they go along again, but I'll just point out, Principal Titus from Manly Middle School, Assistant Principal Allison Alves from the high school, Principal Don Perella from the high school, Carmen Acasio works across the district. You'll learn more about Carmen's role as bilingual family liaison, and I don't have the title quite right, I'm sorry.
Student and family engagement specialist.
Thank you. Matt Busco and Carrie Callan, of course, with us tonight, from East Veterans. So I'm gonna go over a lot of the data first, in terms of our report, and then I'll show you what else. Let me just share this quickly. So tonight's presentation, we're going to go over some highlights in a moment. Then we'll talk about the policy revision, just to remind the committee how we changed the policy in 2022. So that's almost 4 years ago that happened. Okay, I'll do the data report. Now cover state and district comparisons, GPS attendance by school, and then chronic absenteeism by school. Talk about our approach. Everyone's here to talk about their approach in supporting students getting better attendance and resolving chronic absenteeism. And they'll also have a report on staff attendance as well. We'll talk about the state release data, the state released staff attendance for the first time this year publicly. And we also have some local data on repeated absenteeism as well. So we just jump in there. The highlights on student attendance, really, and this is statewide, the COVID pandemic had a dramatic impact on school attendance. I mean, no one could ever imagine that meaning the state, the public schools would take so long to really continue to get back to pre-COVID levels. And most districts continue to struggle with that. We've been making improvements every year on attendance rate and also lower chronic absenteeism since the COVID pandemic. The timing of our improvements coincide also with the ending of the pandemic and also our attendance policy change. We changed the attendance policy at the end of the second year of COVID. So in terms of our improvements, causation is hard to determine, okay? I just want you to know that those things happen at the same time, basically, okay? Last year, our progress retreated some, and I'll show you that. And there's probably a connection with disruption caused by the strike. You'll see, I'll point out some reason why I believe that in a little bit later slides. It's by looking at other districts that locally would have to do those as well. At the same time, our overall attendance rate is lower than almost all of our dark local districts. Okay, so obviously clearly something we got to continue to work on. GHS improved attendance last year and has for every year running since 2021, 2022. We are having a particularly difficult time improving chronic absenteeism of English language learners and students with disabilities. We'll talk about a number of things we're doing and the schools are doing on that. But we still remain below the state significantly in both these areas. I'll show you the data on that. So some of the highlights, headlines rather. So just as a reminder to the committee and to the public, we had a substantial revision to the attendance policy in June 2022. Really shifted from a punitive approach to a more data-driven and proactive approach. That's the approach that all the schools are following, and you'll hear more about tonight. Part of that was focusing on engagement or like pull factors. Ways to get students to make to have reasons to come to school, okay, and also working on decreasing the factors that push kids out. Okay, one example of that would be the attendance failure procedure we used to follow. We have a student family engagement specialist who is bilingual and replaced our attendance supervisor, and that's more of a proactive approach when Carmen Acasio was here versus a more traditional truant officer type concept, which we can add in place to some degree. We also began attendance teams because of the policy change. You know more about those tonight. We also began district-wide attendance team as well. That worked on some messaging and also identifying resources to help the school efforts. We also at that point started participating in a regional attendance committee. which the Gloucester Health Department helps convene with local districts. At the same time, also, our clinical staff is working across families and students in multiple schools to improve the connection with parents on that. Those are some of, so that those are sort of actions that the change in policy from a more proactive, to a more proactive data-driven approach that sort of spurred basically. In terms of data, so what you have here is you have Gloucester data on top and state data on the bottom. So this is going back to 2017 and 18. See, typically we're about a point or so behind the state. Got a little bit closer, and then you see that the sharp declines into sort of from 2021 and 21-22. So the first full year of COVID and the second full year of COVID. It turns out in many places, the second year of COVID had much worse attendance. It was the more significant drop. That's because I think that was the year of Omicron, and also all schools were open at that point, but you had a lot of high absenteeism because there was so much COVID going around, much more COVID at that point than in the first year. And then you see that we were improving every year up until 24, 25. I'll talk more about that as well. You see that in our English learner and special education populations, and in terms of attendance rates, okay, are not so far behind the state. Okay, you'll see a much different story when we get to chronic absenteeism. Right? You'll see a lot of red and green in the slides upcoming, and they simply mean green is a decline in attendance rate from the prior year, and did I say that right? A red is a decline, so I had it exactly backwards. A red is a decline in attendance rate from the prior year, and green is an increase. Okay. So what you actually see here is Gloucester was doing quite a bit better in terms of successive increases over the past few years until last year. We'll talk more about that. But we're one of the only two districts to increase, 3 years running since 2020, 2021. Okay. And we're sort of on par with our districts, and then declined last year. Interestingly enough, hard to know why, but 7 of our 10 districts, including ourselves, declined from 24 to 25. Okay. I don't know the reasons for that, but it's interesting to see that we had company in that. In terms of our dark districts, a little different story. Our local districts, still one of the few districts to have increases in the last 4 years, and starting in 22. So you see this run of 3 years of successive improvement, and then a decline in 24, 25. You'll see that 3 of these 5 districts that declined were a district that had strikes as well. Okay. Of course, we went through February break, and then also went quite late in June, and our attendance was obviously much lower during both those times. We also had, while we started off quite strong a year ago in the fall in attendance, after the strike, it was more difficult to get all the kids back. So we saw those impact. But prior to that, just across the whole district, we're having significant increases every year and really sort of getting back with the program. Again, you see there are not many districts who are at the same place now as they were in 2018 or 2019 and 20. Before the pandemic. This is for the record, 2019, 2020 was obviously the spring that COVID hit, but attendance was only counted until March 14th that year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But that's why those are particularly high. You're welcome to stop me anytime here. And attendance rate by school, you can see, so just again, ups and downs here along the way, especially since COVID, quite a bit of green until last year for the reasons I talked about. But you can see GHS is our one school that has increased every year since COVID, increase our attendance rate. It's great. We'll keep that going. Chronic absenteeism. So just to remind folks what chronic absenteeism is, typically means students who are missing 10% or more days per year. That is 18 absences per year. It's about 2 days of school per month, okay, which doesn't seem like a lot, but if you do that, you're missing 10% of school. Okay, significant. And one of the major concerns of that is that chronic absenteeism is most definitely related to lower student outcomes, and also is a leading indicator of kids dropping out as well. Just for the record, and this is consistent with our policy, the state's identification of students who have chronic absenteeism, it does not distinguish between a reason for the absence. Okay, an absence, no matter what the reason is, you're still missing school, missing that learning. Okay, and also one of the reasons we're moving away from that is to help people understand that an unexcused absence is as bad as an excused absence. Doesn't matter the reason, but also typically there's real disparity about who can get an excused absence or who makes an excused absence as well. So you don't want to have some absence of different value simply because of anything you can provide or allow or a phone call or have a reason for it basically. So just look at the data. Oh, sorry. In terms of some common causes, and you'll see that our work we're trying to do actually addresses some of these, many of these. The aversion, students are struggling academically or socially, so they have an aversion to school. Could be also school pushing kids out from an unwelcome school climate. We've been really working on belonging in our schools. So students may have an aversion to school. Barriers, so that might be personal, family, or societal conditions. That could be trauma, poverty, community violence that prevents students from attending school. These are generalized, okay, they usually are specifically reasons. Disengagement, so that can be another factor that is, largely under control of the school. But if you have lack challenging or responsive instruction or lack support or students are bored, those are things we typically have more control over. We should. Another piece of misconceptions. So just the notion, and we'll talk about this with our Kinbo postcards, is often parents don't realize how quickly absences add up. It's a week here, a week there, or once every couple of weeks. Well, once every couple of weeks, actually, I believe gets you to almost 20 absences. Which of course is chronic absenteeism. So we've been trying to familiarize through our Kinbo postcards when kids are, even if they're early on the path towards chronic absenteeism. So here you just have the different rates. So again, this is just showing this is statewide chronic absenteeism. So you see a couple things here when you see the uptick, rapid uptick into through COVID, and then a sort of a decline, but then a flattening of the decline. Okay, and this is by grade span. So grades 1 through 5 in the yellow, 6 through 8 in the orange, pre-K through K in the green, and then 9 through 12 in the blue. A couple things to point out is that pre-K and high school are the areas that have the highest levels of chronic absenteeism across the state. Okay, pre-K, especially for us, we're trying to educate parents, and our PTO is helping that, and our staff at the preschool, that even in preschool everything matters. Okay, and parents typically take a little while to get with the program on that. You can see that by the time we get to the state gets to grades 1 through 5, families are doing much better in terms of attendance at school. So then now we're going into our dark districts. So comparison with our dark districts on chronic absenteeism. Okay. What you see is, again, everyone improving, just like the state is since COVID. And then this past year, 5 of the 10 districts, including Gloucester, declined, meaning increased their chronic absenteeism. So going higher in chronic absenteeism is the wrong direction. We have a higher percentage of students who are chronically absent. And turns out half of the school districts that we're compared to are dark districts also went up. But you will see that I believe at this point we have the highest rate. Okay, we were closer last year. Prior to last year to others, but went up pretty significantly last year. And this is chronic absenteeism of local districts. Okay, again, you see here in this case. Increasing pretty significantly over the last 3 years from 34.5% chronic absenteeism to 27 to 23.4, so rapidly increasing, and then increase again. Again, I want to point out that of these 4 districts, 3 of them had teacher strikes last year. Again, likely impacting us in similar ways. You see some very significant increases in Beverly and Marblehead, of smaller increases here in Gloucester. But still we're above everybody else. And these are districts that, except for maybe Salem and maybe Peabody as well, are quite different from Gloucester in terms of demographics, socioeconomic level, also number of EL learners. And so there's some arguments, but we compare ourselves always against our local districts and our DART districts. This by school here as well. There are differences by school. Again, most of us, and you can also see comparisons to the state. So preschool we have here, and then the gray is preschool and K across the Commonwealth. And you see the schools, the elementary schools. Just note that East Gloucester and veterans are the sort of historical numbers, and then we switch over to East Veterans when it opened up 2 years ago. 2 full years ago. Again, green is where we're getting better. And then here's O'Malley and Gloucester High. Again, really high numbers at Gloucester High, and the team will talk about that more. Also high numbers at O'Malley Middle. The team will talk about that more. Again, especially O'Malley, really significant decreases over the past couple of years, but prior to last year. And Gloucester High is making some progress as well. So here we get into English learners and students with disabilities. So this is the state data. Okay, you see these numbers are quite a bit higher. Then if you have all students here, is the dark blue. So all students across the state, 18.8% chronic absenteeism across the state. But if you look at English language students with disabilities, the orange line is at 26.5% of students with disabilities are chronically absent, and then 27.8% of EL students are chronically absent. So really big differences between all students and then those 2 subgroups. We have differences as well, as I showed you earlier. And this is our results by school on chronic absenteeism for English language learners. Okay. So some really concerning numbers here in terms of looking at really sort of 35, 38%. 30, the schools that have dashes are schools that either didn't exist at that point or have fewer than 20 EL learners, so they're not shared basically. But the schools that elementary schools are with 34% of our EL learners are at chronically absent, and then you see 39 at middle school. Again, O'Malley was going down a bit and then up the last 2 years. And then GHS has been going down all 3 years, but still a lot higher than the state. But that is the road we're going to be going and continue to improve there. And then students with disabilities, a similar story in terms of higher than the state, quite a bit higher than the state, and then particularly at middle and high school. The area we really need to continue to focus on and improve. So we're going to move to the folks here talking about what they're working on and how they're doing it. I want to point out a few things. So Desi and Massachusetts recommended some research supported strategies to support improve attendance and also support students improving from chronic absenteeism. And I'm sharing this with you because you're going to hear a bunch of these practices tonight from our staff and our leaders here. Here's systems of support, the strategies that at different levels for different levels of need in terms of kids being absent, family engagement, home visits, success mentors. So we're doing a little bit less, but something perhaps we could do more of in school family communications, particularly text messaging. Okay, you'll hear these are research recommended research supported strategies that the state of Massachusetts is really supporting very strongly. You will see that we're doing many of these. So we hand it off to Amy Cam first, and she'll get it handed off to the schools, talk about all the work we're doing to improve these areas.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. Okay, so you've seen this before, and this is how we approach academics. We approach SEL, social emotional learning, the tiered approach, the multi-tiered system of support. And so this was created, Amy Pasquarello and I co-facilitated the district attendance team that met quarterly last year. And this was our team's attempt to look at what is the district doing universally for all kids. So that's around messaging, it's around different engagement strategies, universal screenings, different ways to identify struggling kids before it reaches a higher level. And then tier two is when we have our targeted intervention, so that's when we become concerned. Attendances might be stacking up, and then we are meeting more case consulting and teaming around students and figuring out, are we going on a home visit? Are we connecting them to outside resources? And we work with the family really intensely in this area, the yellow. The tier three really is our most intensive support. And those are at the high school level, you could think of it as dropout prevention. It's a lot of the more daily interventions, our PACE program, our Bridge program, which I'll talk more about later, and our our more intensive therapeutic special education programs, and that kind of thing. So and that's like when we might consider a CRA. We have tried all other things and we need help, and we might enlist the court. So that's on the next one. If you want to go to the next slide. This is also an effort to really detail, clearly delineate what are the efforts. You know, how many outreach efforts are we making? How are we meeting next with the families in person meeting, engaging outside providers? So that's all like a 2A tier, because you'll see 2B is a little different, but we are trying to engage parents, and not all parents are going to be responsive. So if we're concerned about safety, that might be, maybe we haven't had eyes on a child in a bit and we're worried and calls aren't being returned, we might do a wellness check, and that's when we engage our SROs. So we partner with everyone to try to engage students and families. If the student is on an IEP or 504, we would reconvene the team. What do we need to do? What do we need to pivot? What do we need to add? We might add more internal like adjustment counseling for students who are continuing to struggle with engagement or coming. A plan is monitored, and we just keep monitoring and hoping that our interventions are working. And then you can go to the next one. If they're not, we are then, doing more systematic studying of what's going on. What Mr. Lummis had said, Superintendent Lummis, about the causes. If the cause was one thing, it's kind of easy to solve. I'm just going to be honest. That doesn't really happen. If you remember Attendance Works and our consultant in looking at this, I'll never forget, they said the root cause analysis of attendance is usually 8 reasons. So these are complex situations that require a multi-tiered and very comprehensive wraparound approach. So we do that in SST. We have administration, our clinical staff, some teachers are sometimes on it, a nurse, and we look at it from all areas. A lot of times we have the conversation with parents, sometimes it's kind of like simplified as a mental health challenge. But as we know, mental health challenges become like sometimes behavioral issues as well. And so then there's avoidance that becomes more ingrained. And so if we, it's best when we know that quickly and we can respond and connect and work with the family or partners or our community partners. But sometimes we are not aware and it goes on for longer than we'd like. So it just requires a lot more creative thinking outside the box and a lot more active outreach, which Carmen will talk about. We, as Ben had mentioned in the evidence-based, guidelines of DESE, home visits, we have really put a focus on relational home visits. This is about engaging families and connecting and seeing what they need. So we really have gone away from the punitive approach as much as we can. So if they can, we continue to not be successful in our efforts to engage the students and our families, then we might do a pre-CRA here. A child requiring assistance. Okay, so this is again, we are needing help. We are needing help, the family is needing help. Sometimes the family wants this help, which is a nice place to be. And we will invite the probation officer into the school with the family, with the child if they're, you know, usually with the child. And we do like a pre-CRA meeting. And that's like, this is like where we're going if we can't like figure out how to turn this around. This is not where we want to go. We don't want parent have to go to court. It's a lot, you know, we want to try to figure this out. And sometimes that meeting is enough to start positive change. Again, we want to do everything before we have to file a CRA or a failure to set. To be, I'm just gonna say this, like, you know, the CRAs have changed drastically since I have worked in this. It used to be, I wouldn't say, okay, there was more resources to help children. Okay, so the CRA could leverage things that the school wasn't able to, and it was kind of almost like a reset for a child. So they had the STAR access beds. So if they were meeting the conditions of whatever the court had outlined, they could be placed in a STAR access program for like a 2 to 3 very short time, and then return to the community. And sometimes that helped. I don't really find it a helpful process. So we really try not to go that route, but sometimes we have to.
What you're referring to, Amy, is the the fact that agencies or some of the outside the school system,
Right,
those resources
exactly.
that people find dramatic. You really often don't, whether TCF or CRA or to the courts, not finding much help in these areas these days.
Right. Go ahead.
Amy, what, off the top, not, I shouldn't say off the top of the head, but do you have a sense of, like, if you engage a family, what percentage of those kids kind of do a course correct, or those families do a course? You said, well, sometimes, you know, sometimes they get back on track, is it?
What, Amy or folks in schools?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah,
Mike?
yeah, I mean, I would hesitate to throw a percentage out there, but you know, I think to Amy's point, the more complicating factors there are, the less likely it is that a simple conversation or coming up with a plan is going to solve those things. And, you know, additionally, is this due to a recent change in the, you know, either child's mental health or family situation, or is there are there historical elements of chronic absenteeism? Because if a student's been chronically absent since 3rd grade, and we've been engaging these things for very complicated reasons, you know, by the time we're in 8th grade, that's 5 years of, you know,
right.
That's their relationship with school, right? So, so yeah, it's really case by case, to be sure, and also some of these chronically absent students, like not all of them, but you know, they start to chip away at them, like some of them are just medical. I know, if a student, something happens to a student and they're in the hospital for, you know, 2 to 3 weeks, they're chronically absent. And it is by membership, right? So what that means is if a student has missed, it's 10% of the school year at any given point in the school year. So if we're, you know, 20 days in school and they've missed 2 days, they're chronically absent. Obviously, we don't, you know, we were further along in that. So, you know, so it's hard to say that, to her point though, we're not finding any silver bullets, right? There's no, and whether it's, we are trying to enlist outside services and agencies to help us out, and whether it's you know, families don't necessarily agree with our recommendations for support, right? And so then we've got to work with them on that to help them understand that we do think that this will help. Yeah, no, it's not just a meeting, and it's folks. And I guess I would say, you know, we're going to talk a lot about tier 1 things later on that don't seem to directly state being a school is important. I actually firmly believe a lot of, like, folks know school is important, and it's they're the things that are preventing that the barriers are a lot more complicated than just thinking they don't need to be here.
It could be any of the 8 things that we talked about. We rewrote the policy, and I apologize for being so general about the question.
No, it's,
I think,
Yeah.
I think, it's a complex issue, that's for sure.
Any other questions?
So we're gonna move on to Mr. Fusco.
All right, thank you. So we work really hard every day to get kids into school because it's, I think, every principal at the elementary school believe that some of these problems will start at the lower grades. And so we work very hard to try and stop that from happening. So we've been doing a lot of work. We have an attendance team, and Carrie will talk a little bit more about our specific attendance team at East Veterans, but this year we put together an attendance referral form for teachers so they can fill something out if they're, it's kind of catching them a little bit earlier in the process if they're starting to miss school. So it's just a quick, simple little survey. And it also, we review those weekly when the attendance teams meet, and it really helped us because we're closing the loop back to teachers as to what our interventions are and what our next steps are. That was kind of a missing piece with previous attendance teams we had. We really work hard on what we call the Iron Shark at East Veterans. So that we do trimester recognition of students that are never absent. You'll see a photo of them, this group we just took this year, which is our largest one so far. But at the end of the year, any kid who's never missed a day gets the Iron Shark Award. And they are enshrined in our attendance trophy case. So anytime you're at East Vets, come by, check it out. There's a homemade trophy that I built myself. I'm quite proud of it, but
It's really impressive.
it's very impressive. A lot of iron in it. We also do shark sightings. It's like a bi-weekly thing where I do a video and teachers turn in copy and good awards. We read them out. But we use that also as a vehicle for talking about kids who've improved their attendance. The good thing about it, it's not on here, but the good thing about being on the attendance team is you get to know which kids are here and which kids are showing up, and it's always in your mind on a weekly basis. So when you see them coming in on time, you can catch them in the hallway and or why were you out today? Let's talk about that. We work hard, attendance data is always reflected at the top of the report card, but I do push on teachers when they're writing their comments out to, if it's someone who's been missing school a lot, to also include it in those comments as well. I just think the more you talk about it, the better it is, especially before we get to sort of those other steps that we'll talk about as it gets higher up the tier. But we also have these Kinvo attendance postcards. You'll see an example of that as we move along, but those are very good. Those go to everybody. So it can be a celebration or it can be something that's a concern. So you'll see an example of that. But we send those out during each trimester.
So our team consists of Matt, myself, the other school adjustment counselor, our two nurses, Mimi Davis, our administrative assistant, who gets a lot of the phone calls coming in of why students may or may not be absent. And then Carmen is also a vital part of it. We meet weekly. We look at those data forms that we started this year, again, to be able to kind of loop back to the teachers. We're a really big school. Sometimes it's hard to always loop back. So Diana and I took that over this year of being able to look at it and then talk about our interventions that we are putting into place. Teachers only do so much, and then we have the ability to kind of do the deeper dive and be able to follow up with them of more of what our plans are. So we're constantly looking at data. We do our Kinvo postcards, letters to parents, phone calls home. I don't mind making the phone calls. I know sometimes teachers are just like the time crunch, and I look at attendance daily and we track patterns of, so-and-so was out each morning. And kind of looking at why are you not here? What's happening? Often family meetings, sometimes that can just be the success in it of getting families in one time and then we notice a sharp turnaround. Sometimes it doesn't. Home visits and then court filings if needed.
All right, so here I'm very proud that this photo on your left is all the students that did not miss any school this first trimester. So we had 111 students, and that's up from 90 last year. So it's going up every single year. And the second picture is just how we continue. So that would be the second trimester photo of all the kids who still hadn't missed any school. So we try to track them all the way up until the end of the year. So those kids on the right were our Iron Sharks last year.
Matt, what's he holding, Matt? What's he holding?
Well, that was but it's gone as under a significant change this year. That was the Iron Kid, which we brought over from veterans, but now it's the Iron Shark. So but I'm proud to say that the girls, the three girls on your left, Ari, Isla, and Amelia, along with Kayla with glasses, Alessandra in the back row, and Gary to the right. They are all still have not missed a day of school. This year, so they're included there. But I will also point out that Amelia and Alessandra are going on their third year of not missing a day of school. And these parents tell me that they will go with, they've switched plans around so that their children can attend school. So I'm just really proud of them, and they get, the PTO backs me up. We get them awesome awards. We have a huge ceremony. Carmen comes to it to just show the importance of it. It's an all-school assembly to see these kids. They get boogie boards and all sorts of cool stuff to start their summer. So we're just really making a big deal about it, and more kids are talking about, now that we're in our third year, there's more kids talking about the Iron Shark than ever before. So we're hoping that'll pay some big dividends.
Questions for Gary or Matt?
So, thank you, this is awesome. I have a question, because I've heard from parents about these awards. I think O'Malley also had an attendance. Like at the house with the best attendance or something, right?
Breakfast or something.
Yeah, so there are students in the district who feel like they have to go, should they be going to school sick? Should they be going, there's this other side of that, which I appreciate I just wanna say, I appreciate this sort of elevating the kids who don't miss a day. But there are the kids who are just like, who get confused. And also kids get sick. I mean, everybody.
So I constantly explain that to them when we
Yeah.
start. I said, everybody's got reasons for being out, especially if you're sick. We actually don't want you to come to school if you're really sick. And,
Right.
but these kids deserve, some real respect here, because they did not miss a day. I missed a couple of days at school, so.
Yeah, no, I'm not taking away from your
It's just,
perspective.
I do, they all seem to get that point though. They understand that it happens, but, but it is important to recognize them for that. And then it just gets, I just feel the more we talk about it, good attendance in any type of realm is good.
And you're also acknowledging improvement,
Yeah, oh yeah,
So
we
this
are,
is another example of the Kimbo cards, everyone's getting them, and that could be a celebration, or it could be a reminder, so there's the other pieces.
Yes.
So, and this is all good about, rewarding. I mean, I was one of those kids that hardly ever got sick. So every year I'd probably be the 100% attendance kid. Have you, and you don't have to answer, but we know in general, kids are in school, they're gonna learn more, right? It's just a fact. Have you seen the correlation that, will there be a time where we can say the data? Or, not data per se in terms of real detail, but We notice kids that are absent 5% or less, have, scores that are, 15% higher or something. So I'm just, I just think future messaging. I just remember, learning about the emphasis on being tardy when my son was young. And the impact on a child to walk into school late, right? That was communicated to us. Like, imagine your little 6-year-old is now walking into his class late. I think that spoke to a lot of parents that they talked about it from the kid's perspective, like what you're putting them in a situation of. So I'll just be curious as we continue to try to improve, just having a little more correlation.
One of our first interventions that we do is a letter home. And in that letter, it does say that research shows students that are attending school on a daily basis perform better and, and that. So we do try to link it to that.
I do hear also in terms of, can we make correlations, and we haven't tried that yet, but
Yeah.
certainly, research studies have, as you just described.
Yeah, and maybe it is.
But-
Plenty of it out there, yeah.
Yeah, but, can we do something just here on our own? Makes sense.
Individually during child study, when there's a concern for a student of how they're doing, attendance is one data point they look at. So they do look at individually, but to track it across the board, I haven't done.
No.
There's nothing that the people around this table probably haven't tried, like there's, I'm not gonna reinvent the wheel when it comes to attendance. And to Kathy's point, when you think back of your own childhood, I think, well, what got me to school? What really got me to school? It probably get to play sports, I get to be with my friends, get to have lunch, and there was always a couple of teachers that I really, really, really liked, and or I liked the class or something, and I thought, is there a concentrated effort to say, hey, that kid really seems to like those two teachers, let's really, for lack of a better word, charge those teachers with really kind of putting their, lack of a better term, really put those teachers kind of, let those teachers check in with those kids and have a more influential role in that kid's life, where they go home and they say, well, Mrs. Smith, she said, she really wants to see me tomorrow. I'm gonna try and make the effort. I'm sure that that's happening, and I just know, I only think back to my own childhood. I also think I would have maybe got the iron shark, but there would have been an asterisk that said, here, but not really here. Every day.
Goldfish.
I don't believe
And a
that.
goldfish rule, I might have got that here, but not really here would have been the. Yeah.
So what about the notion of individual teachers who have a connection with a student or have known the student from prior years?
So that one of the interventions you put at the tier 2, it's check in, check out.
Yeah.
So, and that doesn't sound that formal, but it actually is a formalized intervention you can do to kids. It's a thing we use, you can use it for academic intervention, behavioral intervention, and attendance intervention. If a student knows it adds a level of predictability to their day.
Right.
So there's a number of different reasons. So yes, you can do it, and it is great. And also, everybody's got a homeroom and a duty, so it's one that you do use thoughtfully. But I know we use it at O'Malley for certain students, and and it can be very impactful. Because it goes back to that, I mean, those teachers in the classroom, that's it, that's the whole game, right? So when they have that connection, it can be a big deal.
Right, and I say this knowing that it doesn't necessarily even have to be a teacher, it can be a staff member. I know that those cafeteria people that I'd be like, probably gonna give me a little bit of that extra, American chop suey.
I will say at the high school, there are so many different people involved in the students' lives. We employ anyone we can who we know has the best relationship to do the outreach. So that's very much part of our plan. And it could be a coach a lot of the times, could be a paraprofessional, but the guidance staff knows, and we know a lot of times who has the best relationship, and we use everyone to have those conversations.
We'll leverage any situation we have, and often hold meetings and we'll try to identify who in the building may have a connection with this student. And it would go beyond attendance too, any issue.
Right.
And just remind me, is there a grade policy, 7 absences, automatic F? Is there anything like that in place or has been in place in the past?
It was with our new policy took that out. It was an automatic fail at the high school level, I believe. Yeah.
We have practices now where teachers have the opportunity to reduce a grade or lower the grade depending on the number of absences, but not fill. And that's a small percentage.
It's
Like
more,
a
it's more about like a
Yeah.
participation grade.
Habits of work
Yeah.
kind of grade. But that, it wouldn't be it technically could, I suppose, but it wouldn't be an automatic failure.
That was one of the big changes the new policy made, was taking that, was removing that policy.
Okay.
You're right.
So, and actually, it was a good segue. What we were just talking about is a big focus of what we've been working on at O'Malley is the bringing back, I think, a lot of some of the cultural and cultural and traditional things that the school did pre-COVID that people were always excited about, really good, and these are often communal gathering type events, and obviously that was not a possibility during COVID. And what I've found both in previous roles and now coming here is how hard it is to bring back all traditions all at once. They're usually an amalgamation of years and years, and like in the case of O'Malley, decades of things that have been there, and then we went through this one event and it erased them, and it takes a long time to build those back. So that's been like a really concerted effort that we're trying to do, especially at the middle school level. These kids, where the academics, there is a jump up in what they're being expected to do, but they're also very much still, especially in our sixth grade, very much still elementary school students trying to make this transition. So we're really trying to think through that and how do we create an environment of like, this is an exciting place to come and I want to be there every day, right? And that's kind of our big focus for tier one, right? Which just means what's every kid getting. So I think that every kid gets, regardless of whether there's a larger concern or not. If there's a consecutive absence, either grade level guidance counselor or nurse will reach out to the family just to check in. And that just kind of happens every morning after the attendance report comes out. Those calls go out. But the positive culture piece here, we're increasing the number of our spirit days. Okay, we used to do, and we still continue to do March Madness. Okay, which is a spirit week, and kids get to do fun things. We decided in the lead up to this break, we wanted to increase that. We had the staff always did an ugly sweater day, the early release of December. We extended that to the students this year as our first one. We have another number of other days. We kicked off this week, Wacky Sock Day. Mine under the table, but I wore my wacky socks. And so it's small things, but it's almost like whatever the opposite of death by a thousand cuts is. Right, and so you go, a million little things, right, leads you in that direction. And I don't know what that phrase is. I don't know if we have it, but door decorating competition is always a big hit. We're continuing that as part of our school list. We're bringing back some of our in-school concerts. That's always been sort of, folks have been around for a long time, talking about how nice that was. Again, COVID made it hard to have these gatherings, so we're trying to build that back. That's something for students to look forward to. We've been working the last few years really hard on advisory and community meetings. In those community meetings, we've started to do a lot more student recognition and shout out. That can be for all different things. It's not necessarily about attendance, right? Part of this is you try to improve attendance without talking about attendance, right? We just want you to be here. We just want you to be here, right? And if they want to, then that goes up. We working on making our honor roll recognition a little more up to date and immediate. Historically, it's gone to Gloucester Daily Times, and that's great. You love seeing my name in the newspaper as a kid. Obviously, times have changed quite a bit. The people aren't looking at newspapers as much anymore. People don't have the news, so it was just in. So and of course, the end of last week marked our midterm for the second quarter, right? And so that's part of some of the delay. People are not used to that in this day and age. That's like, so We did post the honor roll recognition in our s'more, right? So students can see it. We also printed out certificates that students were able to receive in homeroom. The idea would be we get out ahead of that a little bit more, and in these community meetings, it's even more of a celebration. Here's your honor roll, high honors, honor roll, recognizing that, but just a chance to feel good and get things celebrated. And then some other grade level celebrations. Sixth grade did a breakfast leading up to Thanksgiving. And we can't overlook the impact that Amelia Academy has on attendance. Why do kids want to come to school? For some kids at this age, it's because and it could be everything from I just don't feel great today, but I'm going to miss play practice, right? So they get there to Dungeons and Dragons is where I see my people. Right. And I'm more introverted or whatever. And some classes make me anxious to get there, but man, I gotta get there because Dungeons and Dragons my people. Right. And so they were gonna come there for that. And and we do think over time, they feel the connection throughout the school too, but it's all these different things. And then Science Central, right? Our Science Center, we talked about that a lot, but when kids start to take on real world responsibility like feeding fish, right, in the 8th grade. Man, that's a great motivator to not hit snooze on that alarm, which then could turn into another snooze, which is just like, well, I guess I didn't make it there today, right? Oh man, I gotta get there. I gotta feed my fish, right? So, and it's just all the hands-on things they do. Today's sale of cars, right? Well, I'm building my building my nest box today, right? And we've heard a lot about how we're with what's happening at the state level, trying to expand this idea of innovation at the middle school level. My vision long-term is that is not Science Central anymore. That is just some name to be determined, but about project-based learning, our project-based learning lab, and kids are getting that level of excitement in every content that they're engaging in, right? So that's really kind of our theory of the case is bring back the fun, don't lose the academics and the rigor, right? A lot of these fun things are acknowledging the academics and the rigor, honor roll, the shout outs at community meetings, things like that. But also recognizing that our middle school kids, despite how they might want to present themselves sometimes, are still very much kids. And they like that joy, and we're trying to infuse that back in there. So that's tier 1. When we get to the attendance team, you can see there's a lot of overlap between, because at this point, you start getting a little bit more clinical and research based, right? So you can see a lot of the same thing, but we have our guidance counselors. It's really spearheaded by Dennis Hurley, who's our 7th grade assistant principal. Of course, I'm there as needed. We have our nurses. Carmen, you didn't see her name on all of these, right? She's just critical to what we're doing here. We meet weekly. We're pulling a lot of data in these meetings. Where are our trends? Who do we need to start targeting, right? This becomes the place where we can start thinking about interventions for specific students. This is where those nuanced conversations start coming in. And this is why we feel we need all the grade level guidance counselors there. Because 4 absences for one student is not the same as 4 absences for another student. Those could be very different situations, and we need that knowledge of those students to start thinking about what are our next steps. That we also will protect that time as that is a time when the parents come in to meet. So even if you'll see one of the actions after that is parent meetings, but we protect that time for the attendance team to be available to meet with folks as well. It's coming out of those meetings, depending on what the data is showing us, depending on how those where we're at in our chronic absentee process with that particular student. Like making for wraparound services, engaging them in community agencies. Do we need to engage them in outside counseling? Do we need to involve some community support? We have gotten quicker to see pre-CRA meetings. Okay, and I think we're starting to see some efficacy with that because a lot of it has the weight of a CRA without actually involving the parents. And really getting the urgency of the situation brought to the forefront. Okay, so that would still only be happening after we've checked off a lot of other boxes and tried to bring in a lot of other assistance. But when that's either not working or not being engaged with, we need to bring the urgency of what we're really talking about to the table. So we're getting a little quicker with those, and we've seen some success there. Might be Carmen connecting with the families, if we've got a concern, it's a burgeoning thing, so might be time for Carmen to introduce herself, right? You haven't had to engage with Carmen before, but now you're gonna get to know who she is, and she's gonna be here as an additional support for you, an additional contact at the school. And again, meetings, especially early on in this process, let's just get the families in, let's meet with the kid, what's going on, how can we help? Is it kid doesn't want to come to school? Is it there's outside factors going on? But that's where we do some collective, information collection and get to better understand the situation so that we can continue to help. But that's all coming out of the attendance team meetings.
Go ahead, Laura.
I have a question that's maybe not specific to the middle school, but which is about transportation. As a parent, I know like my kids miss the bus. Like there's just days, Monday, there are days where you miss the bus, and some families don't have the capacity to get their kids to school if they miss the bus. And I imagine this is at all the schools. That may not be a cause of chronic absenteeism, I don't know, but I imagine it's one of the factors. What do you do when that's the situation? Where, kid misses the bus, the parents are gone?
So that's actually less of a factor.
Is it?
Recently, because the buses are now no cost, so for older kids, where they might have stayed home because they didn't have the money, it's in a barrier that it was in years past. For younger kids, I'm sure that's.
Yeah, so I mean, we're in the middle. So it kind of depends on the kids that I would imagine for Principal Fusco, it's much bigger. You're not going to ask a kindergartner to walk from, if they qualify for the bus, you're not going to ask them to walk, right? That would be reckless on our part. So whereas at the middle school, what you often see is our students who have high tardies are the students who tend to miss the bus. They still get themselves there, which I always appreciate that, but that was, I missed the bus, so I had to walk, right? So I think, I don't want to speak for the elementaries, because I think it is a more significant barrier. But I think for us at that point, not necessarily relating to, it's not contributing to chronic absenteeism.
And I would say it's not, I don't hear that often.
Okay, good to know.
I really don't. The bus is not, missing the bus has not been used that much as an excuse.
That's great.
Not something I hear.
I'm glad to hear. I mean, where East Vets is and is like a more contained area.
Yeah.
Like my kids have to cross 128 to get to school. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a different thing. I'm not saying that, I'm just, the way the city is so spread out, right? So someone to get to Plum Cove might, anyway, but that's interesting. And I also just wanted to say as a parent that those laminated honors things was the first time I ever saw that, was the way I found out as a parent. And it's been sitting there being noticed all week.
I'm glad to hear that was the goal.
Right, it wasn't acknowledged really, it came out of the backpack and was there, but it's there. Right, because we're not looking at the list in the Gloucester Daily Times, I don't even know when it comes out. I'm pretty involved.
I actually had one student who parent came back after school to pick up the backpack. The student remembered the certificate, but forgot their entire backpack. So excited about the certificate. So it was a really good. I think I'm really happy with the reception of it.
It was laminated. So it has a feeling to it, which I think is really positive.
All right, let's move to the high school here.
Good evening, everyone. Similar to my colleagues, we're really focusing at the high school on the carrot approach, really thinking through creating a warm, inviting environment for students to come to want to come. We feel like it's probably the best approach as students become young adults. Hopefully persuading them that this is valuable and important, but also somewhere where they want to be, somewhere where their friends are, and they don't want to miss that out. I'm gonna hand it over to assistant principal themselves to kind of go through some of the details, primarily because she is a co-architect of many of the safety nets that she's going to speak of. I know her and Mr. Cook Spent the past 2 years really thinking through this, and I'm happy to inherit some of the work that they already put in place. And I'd be happy to kind of speak to some of the other elements along the presentation. So Ms. Elves.
Thank you. So I would say the first bullet here is really the biggest change that we've made in the past few years is that attendance is discussed at every student meeting that we have at the high school. So every IEP meeting, every 504 meeting, every time a student is sent down to my office for behavior, I'm putting their school grades. I have a TV in my office kind of like this, and I can pull up their school grades profile and actually look at a color-coded version of their attendance with absences, tardies, and dismissals on there. The guidance counselors do the same thing. The adjustment counselors do the same thing. So every time we're talking to a student about their performance, whether that's behavior, grades, or anything that comes up, we discuss attendance. So we have to have that approach as a school because there are so many stakeholders and there's so many people involved in a student's life. We have to make sure we're all talking about attendance and we're all having that same message that attendance matters, every day matters, and it's really important that you're at the high school because this impacts your grades and your overall performance. So I would say that is a huge thing that we've really implemented in the past few years is making sure that their attendance is at the forefront. Again, like everyone else mentioned, we have regular communication and check-ins with Carmen. She's actually housed here 2 days a week, which makes it very easy for us to access her. Even when she's not here on the days that she's scheduled to be here, she's just a phone call away. And if we need her help with a student or a phone call, we all make that call to Carmen. Hey, can you call so-and-so? We're having a hard time this morning. Can you get in touch with this parent that reached out to me? So Carmen is a really big resource that we're all using here at the high school. We do have a lot of different things, kind of like what Mike mentioned. We have a door decorating contest going on right now. A lot of those incentives that will bring the students in and be pull factors. The mystery singer just started at the high school. I'm not sure if you heard about it. That's really exciting. I love it. But we do a lot of those things. Don't know what that is.
So we had a question about it.
He wants to do it.
No. And when you're choosing a mystery singer, does the person have to display any talent?
No.
Okay.
No, it's a private conversation I have with the staff member. And we don't talk about it until it happens next week. Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry.
We were told it was very secretive.
I'm the only one that knows.
Right.
Yeah. So a lot of those things, we just want to make it fun for you to be there. Because if you are looking forward to something, you're going to want to be in school. So we try to incorporate as many things, whether it's stuff coming from the office or stuff in the classroom that we don't want students to miss. We try to incorporate all those incentives. One of the big ones we do yearly is the March Madness attendance contest. We build a big bracket that we display near the cafeteria where it's each grade level that competes against each other. The criteria is their chronic absentee rate. So we actually have we've been really lucky over the past few years too, that we've upped our software, I guess you could say, or our data collection of some of our chronic absent students and what it looks like. So I run the numbers. We break down the bracket, and then the winners of the March Madness attendance contest get a grade-wide breakfast. So Amy funded that with her grant money, which was awesome. This will be year 3 in March this year. But the past 2 years, the junior class won, which is a different group of kids each year. So that's kind of interesting. But it's nice. The kids really look forward to it, and it gives a little competition, and it's not kind of like you were speaking to, if just one kid gets recognized, that gives you that opportunity where it's like, if you miss a day and you're sick, you're still in the game for an attendance competition. So that's been really positive. You'll see an example in a couple of slides of the Kinvo postcard, but that we try to send home monthly. And that shows parents exactly where their kid is at that given time. And it's nice because me and the other administrator I work with, our Dean of Students, Samantha Meyer, we each send it home to our own students. So that gives the opportunity for the parent to text us back using that software. So if they're like, hey, can you give me a call to check in on this? It's like instant. I can be like, yeah, I'll call you tomorrow, or I can set up a meeting, or we can talk about it. So that two-way communication from Kinvo, not only the postcard, but the texting that you can do back and forth. We have to send it in a time where we're ready to get feedback, because you're going to get at least 10 messages back right away when you send it. So that's been really positive. Just like everyone else said too, we have a lot of teams that are looking at attendance data. Our SST team meets weekly, student study team, and that's referrals from teachers. So that can be all kinds of things, grades, behavior, whatever's going on in the classroom, but that's something we're always looking at attendance part of that meeting when looking at the whole student. The high risk team meeting, Amy comes in every Thursday. We meet with me, the dean of students, all the adjustment counselors and all the guidance counselors get together as well and talk about our high needs students, and that includes attendance. We have our weekly admin meetings where we talk about attendance. And I send out monthly, usually attendance updates from our office to the staff. That's something that probably 2 or 3 years ago now, I went to a training about attendance from the state, and one of the strategies that they recommended was sharing attendance data more regularly with the staff. So we're really trying to take the data that we have kind of at the higher level and sharing it with the staff so they can see like a snapshot of where we're at. And I think I have a slide about that coming up too. Ben talked about this already, but this is our GHS chronic absenteeism data over the past few years compared to the state. So obviously this is not where we want to be. We have improved over the past few years, besides last year, like Ben said, we had a little blip. So we're trending in a better direction. 2020, 21 was obviously very high because of COVID. And even before COVID, the 18-19 school year, having 30% of our students be chronically absent, we weren't in a good place then. So it's hard to bounce back when you start in a place that you're not super happy with, but I feel like a lot of these things that we're putting in place and a lot of the strategies that we're using have made an impact, but we do have work to do. And this is something that we've shared with the staff quite a bit.
And this is all, that was all students, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
This comes from those attendance updates that I send out to the staff. So this is over the course of last school year, just like by date, you can see where things start to get rough. So in October of last school year, 25% of our students were chronically absent. Just about a year ago from now, December 15th, 2024, we have 30.6%. So there was quite a big jump from then. Things got worse as the winter went on, but then as we got to the end of the year, we did have a little bit of improvement. So it is interesting when you kind of break it down, and we try to share with the staff where we're at just so they can see. The most current data that we pulled was from December 11th, and we had 29.5% chronic absenteeism at the high school.
And at that point, it's to this date, what's the 10% of days absent, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so we're 80 days in, 70 days in.
Yeah, and we run reports, Carmen works with us on this, of who those students are, because as the day number changes of the school year, that student list changes, because you could have 9 absences, but that puts you on the border of chronically absent. Things might get better and you might trend in a different direction, and then some other kids might get in danger. So it's really important that we have that software that lets us pull those lists of kids who are at risk.
But this is showing me though, even if somebody was really ill at the beginning of the year, or, and got beyond it, or they were bad, not so good in attendance, these numbers could come down.
Yep.
But they're generally not, right? A little bit.
Yeah, it's just interesting to look at the students. So that's why it is really important that we have the names associated with these kids, and we can look at that
You're right, because
over
you're
time.
saying they could be different kids.
Yes, yeah.
Got it.
Correct.
Yeah.
This is the Kinvo postcard that everyone was talking about. So I just took the students, I don't know if it has a date on this one, but I blacked the name out there. So this goes out to parents, and it comes through via text message and email. So it shows you on that little thermometer, based on what day in the school year you're at right now, the percentage and how many days they've missed. It actually shows you the dates that they've missed. So it's a really good tool for parents to look at with their kids. We don't have a way right now for us to send these to the kids, which I hope that is something we can try to work on. We've talked about it a little bit. But this comes through from our office to the parents, and it goes to everyone that's listed as a guardian.
What's the stumbling block to getting it to kids? Is it?
So every Gloucester school's email, you can only get emails from other Gloucester schools' email. So there's a little bit of a tech piece we gotta work on.
Because you're sent like through the Kinvo app.
Yeah.
And so Gloucester high school students or Gloucester students can't get emails from outside Gloucester school.
Right. So,
I don't know if you guys are actively working on solving this particular issue, or,
Something that we're trying to look at. It is something though that we can pull up when we're with the kid. I can say, this is the most recent one I shared with your parents. Let's look at it. We have access to that and I've used them in that capacity. But I think at the high school level, it might be nice for us to be able to share them with the kids.
Right.
It's just a matter of trying to figure out how that would work.
This might help with kids skipping, because there won't be any secret at home that.
Yes. Yeah,
And
So-
just high school kids get this or no?
no, everyone,
Yeah, I send them out.
everyone sends it out, yeah.
We all do.
So this may be one of the unanswerables, and this may be to you also, Carmen. I mean, 30+% is chronically absent at the high school. And since I've been on the committee, which is a long time now, 6, 7 years, I mean, there's so many amazing things happening at the high school all the time. You know, and you know, between CVTE, I mean, there's just always, it feels, I'm not a parent and a high school student, but like, it just feels like there's been a lot of pulls. And so it begs the question for me of like, what is this? Like, is this a part of the culture of our city? Is this, you know, what is this that it's having more than 30% of our high school students sort of are young adults absent, chronically absent? And I know, you know, there's so many issues, right? And there's so many things, but it's such a high number that it just begs the question, like, is there some, I know there's all different reasons. I know there's not a uniform answer to this question. But what are we communicating to families? What are we communicating? I'm not faulting anyone. I'm just sort of trying to understand how a number could be this high.
So I will say, well, it's very complex, right? There's probably no one right answer to it.
Right.
There's a lot of students that fall in the 10 to 20. So chronically absent 10 to 20. There's a lot more in that category than 20% or more. So the severely chronic absenteeism, someone that's missing 40, 50 days, that number is much smaller than the other chunk. So when you look at, you can't miss more than 18 days and then you're in that category.
Right.
There's a lot of people that are probably 18 to 21 or 18 to 25 that are not quite at that in the red. But I don't know.
I want to say something else, because I've been here for a long time, and there was formerly a strategy to disenroll people quicker too. And that raised the dropout rate. Because if they're absent 15 times, you can, send a letter if they're, to say that they're being withdrawn. So I do think also we don't do that. We try and try to help kids keep engaged. And that's what I'm going to talk on the next slide. Can I go to that? So the next slide is all the amazing things I think that we've created in our district, especially for dropout prevention, so that we aren't giving up on kids. And one of them is the Bridge program. So we have about, I'm keeping the data, we have a pretty high rate of kids who miss school due to psychiatric, either inpatient, partial, or CPAT. So, or there's a medical issue, there might be a concussion, but an extended period of time. So the Bridge program is a transition program to re-engage and reintegrate students more slowly. And Liz Moran, the academic coordinator, is the unsung hero. She knows every curriculum, I think, in the school. I think she does. I mean, it seems like she can help them in any subject and works with the teachers to get them back to school and feeling successful. So that's one piece. Also, we use that program for school avoidance. So if a student has missed a lot of consecutive days, we work with them because a lot of times they just can't imagine coming back and attending 7 classes and feeling that overwhelmed and behind. So we integrate them again with a slow, supportive manner to get them reintegrated and back to class in the Bridge program. We would love to have that program be fully aligned at the middle school at some point because it's an unmet need, and I think Mike would agree with me. And then Lynn Lyons. So Lynn Lyons is our consultant. When we have kids who are missing school because of anxiety, school avoidance, school refusal, whatever you want to call it, we often, all through the district, have consults with her, with the parent, with the student, and with their outside providers. And we're coming up with strategies. You can't just expect a kid to come back to school sometimes without the strategies, without a plan. So, we prepare them we've already talked about how this is gonna look. Okay, when your child says this, how are you gonna respond? So we walk with parent through it and give them the support. We have an after-school credit recovery program, and Chris Castle had helped us write a grant through Jesse for the ML credit recovery so that kids can keep up to date with their credits. So that's a really successful program. The RAISE program, Reengaging All Youth to School, our partnership with JRI and Unity, and that serves up to 15 kids and keeps kids engaged. And then the Gloucester Alternative Program, which are special ed students, and sometimes it's a more flexible schedule, and it also has different ways to do credit recovery, and so that we can get them back on track too. And then the other thing I just want to say is a lot of times we have kids in money levels, elementary, middle, and high school, and we often now pull in each one from each school and have a meeting across the district with parents, because first of all, it helps them not feel like pulled in 3 different directions, and also we can strategize together and send, coordinate support. So there's that. And then we believe that supported and connected families have more engaged students. So Carmen, we've sung her praises. And I'm gonna turn it over, and she's gonna talk about what we call relational home visits.
The relational home visits, actively engaging parents and families, guardians, caregivers, in improving the relationship with the school. I spend a lot of time doing home visits, just to get to know kids. Sometimes I get them right to school, but just to get to know them, and I am available for these home visits for anything the parent might need related to school or not related to school. Sometimes they need interpreting, sometimes they want help trying to figure out why their student is doing one thing or another. A lot of ML, I hate using that word, but I'm sorry. A lot of ML students, especially, I reach out to because I speak Spanish. Still learning to speak Brazilian Portuguese, but at least I speak Spanish, and there we can somehow get along. But I have found that when I give my cell phone number to people, it hasn't been abused, so they typically will call me. Like I get calls, as early as 6 a.m. saying, my kid is giving me a hard time already. And I try to make them feel as comfortable as possible to call me at that. Because I want them to come to school. So parents, I'm sorry, I'm losing my train of thought, but whatever barrier there is for the family is what I try to help them to overcome. And a lot of it is transportation that I have found. I give rides to school all the time because I know that on the way to school, I can have a conversation with them. I can treat them to something, try to make a connection with them. There's so many things that go in a home visit. I'm sorry.
Is that students of all ages that you give around?
Oh, yeah.
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 So I'm sure parents appreciate that of young kids.
Yes, I have, I say that expressively. I say, if you have a problem with getting them to school, getting them out of the house, getting them out of bed, getting them in the shower, I will go to your home. I can't do that every day, obviously, but I will go to your home and try to help you. I try to figure out what the morning routine is, where the problem is, where the breakdown happens between parents and kids trying to get out.
What percentage would you, again, I'm not gonna say percentage, I'm gonna say the parents that you engage, what's their general, are they looking for, are most of them looking for help, or some of them just rather dismissive and not really?
I would say most of them are looking for help. They want somebody.
They want their kids in school.
Yeah, they want someone to go to the home and present a united front. Look, this person is from the school. This person is on the same page as I am. you have to go to school. And depending on the parent, I can speak with students by themselves. Sometimes the parents are like, you know, they give me all the information and then they're like, you deal with it. I don't get that as often, but I do get that. And at that point, parents are like, I don't know what else to do with these kids. And a fresh face sometimes. But I wanted to also talk about what families are identified for the home visits, and it happens in, is it tier 2A, I believe. And they can be, the home visits can come from, you know, attendance meetings where we talk about what kids need to be seen because they're not responding, parents are not responding to Kindle, they're not responding to phone calls or emails. And the home visit is the next step. If there's a long string of absences, we will respond with a home visit and or a well-being, a well child check visit. It depends on, and the difference between those two depends on how, when was the last time we saw them? When we have more than one student chronically absent in the same family, that's just like Amy was saying, we've got elementary, we've got middle, and we have high school students, and they all have an attendance issue that also prompts a home visit. Parents are requesting for support, that's always prompts a home visit. Provider meetings, when we try to strategize who needs a home visit, when they need the home visit, the provider and I will say, well, we can pick up this kid this day, that provider can pick up this kid that day, especially if the kid is having a hard time coming to the building.
Are you going alone on these home
No,
visits?
no,
It's against
I'm not,
policy.
yeah.
Right,
it's
that's what I
against-
figured. I just wanted to
Yeah.
clarify that.
So I'll go out, in the elementary school level, it's usually the student adjustment counselor that comes out with me. At the middle school level, it would be, it has been a guidance counselors. The SRO typically, is the one that comes out to the home with them. Sometimes if it's just a pickup and the SRO is not available, and I'm just bringing medical pickup there. I typically would just say, come on for the car, you know.
But when there's a family that you don't know yet, or you're meeting, I would assume.
Oh, yeah.
We have a whole, but the behavioral health protocol, there's a whole safety checklist and protocols.
I was assuming that.
Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying.
No, thank you for. Go ahead, Carmen, the frequency.
Yes.
Yeah, yes.
So, I'm not very savvy with the slides, so there aren't any exact numbers on how many home visits were completed. But my first year is the 23-24, and the lighter blue is at elementary level, and the amount of visits that I did. I can get specific numbers, it's in my book, but my first year and my second year, a lot of middle school kids is where I directed a lot of my attention. With home visits. This year for this present year right now, for some reason, it's the elementary school students, and I haven't figured out why yet, but I have noticed when I was putting this together that I have a lot. But this year for elementary.
But the trend in the middle school and high school is certainly going in the right direction.
Yes.
We're doing less visits for that school.
Yeah, and it's all, you know, prompted by whatever they needed. It could be provider meeting, regular meeting, phone call. You know.
And I think that's also reflective, like what Mike said, Mr. Titus said, you know, when we're at the high school level, sometimes it's something that's been going on for a long time. So the earlier Carmen can build that relationship and create those, you know, interventions and supports, I think, for that are so, you know, it seems like the data that you just showed shows that that progress.
In addition to the home visits, the family engagement efforts, that's where I get to meet the kids and at a different level play. The picture up here, we were doing arts and crafts, and she's actually was not in school that year, but she started school this year. But she was super excited about the fact that there was a school, that somebody from the school was there, they were doing arts and crafts, we had food. Yeah, you can see our pictures. Yay.
I'm gonna ask these, excellent.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And so we're gonna let these folks go.
We're gonna ask you.
Yeah.
You can stay if you really want.
I guess this time.
Folks go, I do want to say a couple things, which is. Folks are doing many of the right things. And we still have some real issues. I mean, I think Allison, you just captured it so well. You know, it's not as we want to be, particularly with students with disabilities and ELO, okay? And as Mike said, this is, you know, there are lots of complex pieces on all of this, okay? But we have to keep working at it and doing the things we're doing. And also, as I showed you as well, is that, you know, the work our teams are doing are the things that many folks are telling us that are the right things to do. So I don't know if there are other answers or different answers. You know, I'm sure our folks are trying, keep on asking those same questions, and we need them to ask those same questions. But I also do know that folks are dedicated and determined to really get kids in school in all the ways that they try to. Appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you.
Just a, wondering if it was bullying to January.
When does that?
I think later. I think so. I think in terms of timing, we're okay.
We're okay.
Yeah, we're okay. Yeah.
I think that's.
All right.
Without objection.
Okay.
That's
Okay. Thank you. Good night, thank you. Thank you.
And then, so let's move to staff attendance. And, I
Bill.
Okay, so tonight we're giving staff and attendance report. First time we've done this, and doing it for a number of reasons. Primarily, it's the first point that the state has made teacher and administrator attendance a public report. For years and years, as long as I can remember, that all districts have been reporting to the state our staff attendance. So that's teachers, that's all for all staff. Okay. And those absentee types include the various pieces. I just define them here: paid vacation time, paid professional activities. So they include, what we report to the state, okay, is all absentee types except for paid vacation time and paid professional activities. Okay. Of course, only our year-round staff get paid vacation time, right? Most school-based staff, I would say, have the three breaks or vacation in the middle in the school year, and then summer vacation as well. But the personal days, sick days, jury duty, bereavement, paid leave, maternity, paternity leave, all count as absences. Okay, when we report to the state. Okay. This includes also we report fully employees, school employees, and part-time employees. Okay. All that reporting is based on the work year for each individual employee. Okay, so we also report on the work year of each employee, whether it's 183 days or 220 days, that sort of thing. Okay. But we report that every year. This year, for the first time, the state is reporting to the public annual staff attendance data. Okay, and they're going to continue to do that annually. Those are in the district and school profiles that are on the DESE website, where many folks go to for everything from enrollment data to achievement data, just all sorts of things. And that's all organized by district and by school. In the state's reporting of the staff attendance, they've reported in 3 groups: teachers, administrators, and all staff. All staff is more than just teachers and administrators. Okay, it's all staff. Okay, so those, when you see some of the table that show you'll see teachers, administrators, and all staff. If all staff is it's not teachers plus administrators equals all staff. Okay, it's not that simple, because you have many more people who are staff beyond teachers and administrators. The report from the state includes attendance rate, not rated, attendance rate and average number of absence for each group. I'll show that to you. And then The state data includes all these absentee types, so personal days, sick days, jury duty, bereavement, paid leave, paternity leave, and unpaid leave, all are counted in the state data, okay? And then an absence is considered missing more than half the workday. Okay. And then also you'll see some places where we don't report the data, or the state doesn't report the data. That is when there are fewer than 6 people in a specific group. You'll see that mostly for administrators, and you'll see it especially for our elementary schools, which don't have 6 administrators. They have, maybe 2. So, so the other folks have asked and talked about, why report teacher and administrator attendance. So locally here, we've had a couple of years at least, not more, there have been concerns expressed publicly by staff, paraprofessionals, and families around attendance, and also particularly how we coverage for attendance. Okay, and paraprofessionals voiced it quite a bit because they're often the ones pulled to do coverage for when teachers are absent, for example, and also because like most districts, we have don't have enough subs every single day. So those concerns have been expressed publicly to the school committee and others. Obviously, the impact on student learning. Teachers are the single most important school-based factor in student learning. That's been repeated again and again in terms of research. So that really teacher attendance in any school matters a whole lot. Also, when teachers are out, there's an impact on their staff. Okay, impacts the role staff may take on, coverage, and also makes it harder to fill absences as well. And then state part of their reporting as well has talked about just the combined impact that we just went through student absences. If you combine student absences and teacher absences, that's a one-to-one correlation or just simple addition. It really does affect the total number of days of learning that a student has. Okay, so those are some of the reasons to do so. Just want to also give some folks context because of course all our employees, whether it's Gloucester Teachers Association or any bargaining unit or any administrators, are allowed through their contract, whatever form that takes, a number of personal leave days. Okay, we're focusing on teachers tonight, so I'm sharing that information to give people context. So by the contract negotiated with the school committee and the GTA, teachers have the ability to use 76 days per year. Teacher with professional status, without professional status, start with 5 days per year. Okay. Unused sick days can be carried over and accumulated up to 165 days, so you can have that many total at any one time. And then 10 of these days can be used to care for family members each year. Okay. PTA members also get 3 personal days, and then of course they're eligible for family benefit leave, parental leave, and a variety of extended leave. So it's important to know this information when we look at staff absences, okay, or teacher absences, administrative absences, stuff. So then here's some of the data. So we have Gloucester data on top and the state on the bottom. So you see again, teachers, administrator, and all staff. Just again, remember they don't add up. Teachers plus administrators don't add up all staff. There's more than that. And same thing on the bottom here. You'll notice our attendance rate in all 3 categories is higher than the state. So 94.4% of teachers are that's attendance rate for our teachers versus 93.5 down here for the state. Similarly with administrators, our attendance rate for administrators across all our schools is 97.4%. For administrators across the state is 94.5%. And then all staff again is our attendance rate for all staff is above all staff for the state, 94.4 for Gloucester, 93.4 for the state. And then you can see how that these attendance rates correlate to average number of absences. So 94.4 percentage attendance equals an average number of absences of 10.1. And then you see 5.5 average number of absences for administrators, and all staff are 10.3. Again, all those numbers are below, or better than I should say, the state averages. Okay, I will just talk about average number of absences. Remember, the state data includes a variety of leaves as well. So you can have some of this data skewed by, folks who are taking, approved leaves for very important reasons. Could be family, medical, any number of ways. So just that average is kind of a hard number to, it's just, say it's an accurate number, but averages in this case, can be misrepresented. And then we just have it, again.
I don't really understand what you just said.
Well, because if you thought of us in this group, the
Right.
6 of us, okay?
Yeah.
And Bill, was out a lot for any number of good reasons, okay? But the rest of us weren't, okay? Maybe he was golfing a lot, let's say that, okay? All right? And he was out, say, 60 days, I'm making this up, okay? Because, he's a very good golfer and he's got tournaments playing, okay? Right, but the rest of us were out, 2 days each.
Because I can't golf.
Right, you can't
Well,
golf,
I'm in.
okay? I can't golf, but I tried. Anyway, so and the rest of us were each out 2 days. The average of ours would be quite high, okay? But really, it's just Bill. So that's how in this case, an average of absences is just, it's not a great statistic, that sort of thing.
Right, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Now I get what you're saying.
Yeah, it just, because, and if you were just looking at, fewer numbers, fewer types of absences, it might be more indicative of something.
Yeah.
But because we're including the long absences, the leave.
Right.
It throws things off, basically.
Right.
Yeah, right.
But they're looking at that, they're looking at teachers and staff the same way they look at kids. You're either there.
Right.
Or you're not.
Yeah, that's
So-
true, that's true. Yeah, that's.
So as you
yeah.
say, the average probably isn't that helpful. It's one piece.
Yeah, it's one piece.
It's not,
Yeah.
descriptive.
It's one piece, one piece, yeah. I think it's important to know that, we're doing better than the state, okay? We look at that a lot in lots of different forms of data, okay? So then here you have the various schools. And just to show the differences, so you'll see actually quite a bit of similarity in terms of attendance rate and average number of absences among preschool and elementary schools. All in the sort of 8.6, 8.8 range. This parish, things get a little higher in terms of average number of absences at O'Malley at 10.5. And 94.1%, okay, remember our district for teachers was 94.4%, so that's a little lower at O'Malley. And then also different at the high school as well. So a higher average number of absences, as we just talked about, but also the attendance rate for teachers goes down to 93.0. And then district office as well, we included because they're, talking about administrators. And you can see that the attendance rate is 8.8, higher number of absences is 2.9. All district office staff are at 96.8 with 7.7 absences per year. Remember that these folks typically have longer work years. So while you have 7.7 absences, it's still a higher attendance rate. So that's the state data, just also presented, again, the state's presenting it by schools, so that's what we did here as well. I do want to also then go towards some local data here. So this is different, okay? These absences we're talking about are just, as it says on the bottom, just sick days and personal days, okay? So we've sort of taken out the additional leaves that people take for a variety of really important reasons, maternity, paternity, could be sick leave, that's sort of medical leave. And we're looking at just teachers who are absent 10 or more days for each of the last 3 years. Okay, so that means they've had 10 or more combined sick days and personal days, not 1 year, but 3 years running. Okay, so that's repeated absenteeism, really. Okay, so we'll talk about this a little bit. Important to look at. So, again, low numbers. There's smaller schools as well, but low numbers preschool through West Parish. Higher O'Malley, bigger, more staff, but then quite a bit higher at Gloucester High. Okay, and so what do we make of this? I'll tell you what we're doing about it in terms of looking into it, because these numbers alone and looking at just the numbers of absences for any of these teachers who had this repeated, sort of pattern across 3 years doesn't tell anyone much. So we've asked our principals and our supervisors. They're aware of the people in their school who fit that pattern of 10 or more absences, meaning sick days and personal days combined, for each of the last 3 years. They're gonna look at that, they're looking at that data to understand, look at the numbers for each of those individuals, and then when necessary, having a conversation with the individual. They may not, sometimes it may not be necessary to have a conversation with an individual because the principal may already know just what's the cause of that. And they're working with their staff, they know their staff, okay? In some cases, it may be a surprise, honestly, okay? Principals have a lot going on, it's hard to keep track of, anyone, particularly their exact attendance, so. But as necessary or as needed, a principal will have a conversation with an individual staff member to understand what's been going on, or what the particular circumstances of their repeated absences are. And are gonna work with them to stress the importance of being present at work. And being really present at school for our students and for their colleagues. But that has to happen on an individual basis, first is looking at the data, versus understanding what the data, why, and the story, and the personal, the circumstances for each staff member. And then seeing if there needs to be either, a plan or just suggestions or coaching or whatever it is, it's really just a support conversation initially and to gain understanding. And then also remind folks that really, do meet all our staff at work. Any of our staff members, administrators, teachers, paraprofessionals, bus drivers, they're crucial people. They're really, it usually matters, just like it does for students, but even more so, I'd say, in some ways, because they've got impact and importance to many kids. That's sort of where we are. Just wanted to share that with them. Maybe.
I just wanted to ask, we've spoken in the past about Friday and Monday absences, absences. And obviously that data is not reflected here.
Right.
When you are looking at these sort of chronic, I don't want to say chronic, but repeat, absences, are you identifying that as well? I know that that's something we really tried to limit, the Fridays and Mondays. And having been in an elementary school on Friday this week that had a ton of absences, you can see the impact it has on a school. So I'm just wondering, sort of where that plays into this.
So we have looked at times, either interim principals or myself or others, about look at that. Typically, if someone's coming up based on another issue related. One thing I've learned over looking at the data is that if you think Monday and Fridays are 40% of the school days. So just naturally, looking at those two combined, you're gonna have a high percentage, just if everyone was taking every day even. If I took, 10 days absent or out, and I just split them up normally, whatever. 4 of those days would be Monday and Friday, so that it's harder to get above that threshold very easily. But some cases it does, and that's one of the areas we certainly, have the ability to talk to a teacher or coach them or staff member about that. And it's something that probably will look at more closely, especially with the repeated absences, understand.
It's just a straight.
Yeah, is that part of the issue? Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll just follow up on that, on the Monday, Friday thing, in that I do hope our administrators are looking, in the contract, it talks about patterns.
Yeah, it does, yeah.
And if, so many people are out the day after a long holiday or the day before a long holiday, there's gotta be some management of that if there is a pattern. And, it's the job. The job is Monday through Friday. And if somebody's sick, obviously they're sick. But if there's a pattern that they're sick every, frequently on Fridays, then that that suggests checking in into that. So, just the same as we were checking in with kids, right? If a parent took a kid out every Friday because they're going to their ski house, we'd probably talk to that parent to say, your kid really needs to be every Friday for the 3 months in the winter? Because it's impacting 20% of his time getting instruction. That's all I'm saying.
And that, just to say again, our attendance is better than the state, okay? In some cases, a lot better. And also that's, I think, one of the reasons to look at repeated absenteeism, as a place to begin for a closer look at, like you were suggesting. And, there are a few things, this is specific in the teacher contract, okay, it's not in other contracts, but that's what we're sort of focusing on here. Where, we are able to look at patterns, okay, Monday, Friday being one of them, absences around, a school vacation week or a long weekend, that sort of thing. And so that's a place that we have, and certainly I'd say, Gloucester High, I mean, to lesser degree, but Gloucester High really needs to, I think, look at that. That's a larger number of staff who have repeated absenteeism. It's worth, because we certainly do hear concerns from parents about, kids for any number of different reasons. Sometimes it's teacher absenteeism, sometimes it could be something else, it could be, where kids are, are in the lecture hall and stuff, sort of repeat classes and this sort of stuff. That's it, and that's what we've heard from parents again and again. So
Well, that's what, when I see that number from the high school, that's what I'm thinking of, all these parents who've come up and spoken to us and written to us to say, my kid's not doing anything, they're sitting in the study hall, and that shouldn't be. And certainly, it's like, as we connect all these presentations, like, that's not a pull factor, right? Like, that doesn't make you want to go to school. So.
I mean, this is all in the interest of improving student outcomes and being there for kids and having our, professionals, our most experienced with expertise in front of our kids.
and where appropriate, it makes sense for, principal supervisor to have an individual conversation, with a staff member based on a staff member circumstances. So that's important, yes. I think, one last piece, sorry. Oh, actually, two pieces, sorry. So just in terms of budget priorities. You saw last week, nothing's changed except for formatting, based on good input from Laura Weason. And so just in terms of budget priorities, for the upcoming FY 2027. So tier 1 instruction, specifically that's the high supporting and investing in. So these are things that have been investing in and want to continue to invest in. Okay, so tier 1 instruction, that's really the sort of high quality instruction that engages students in deep learning and leads to academic achievement. And that also includes professional learning that goes along with that and is needed to support teachers in doing that. That's also curriculum materials, the tools to support it. And then specifically underneath that, okay, is inclusion in co-teaching, inclusion in coaching being our general education approach, our primary general education approach we are developing further over time. And then professional learning and development for ESPs as well, support so much of our instruction in our classes. So that's the priority A of them. Priority B here, strengthening special education. So again, as we really invested in a lot over the last couple of years, specifically this year, in programs, but also specialized instruction and support. Want to continue to invest in those areas and continue to strengthen them. And then we talked about just tonight even supporting the ongoing strengthening, expanding of our career voc tech education at Gloucester High. So those are the 3 top priorities to continue and invest in and strengthen. We do need to invest in multilingual learner education, including instruction, curriculum, service, and support. We've been doing some of this, especially on instruction and curriculum most recently, on the service and support of more longer term. But we really do need to be able to prioritize that as possible in the upcoming year. Other areas that are important, but probably can't invest in as much and aren't as higher priority right now Doesn't mean they're not important, okay, want to hear that. But we do have to make some difficult choices whenever we're creating a budget. Tier 2 academic support is something we want to continue to invest in when possible. And then transportation, we've got to continue to invest in it at the very least in terms of recruiting drivers and making sure I want the committee, as I said last week, to know that we are very concerned about the number of drivers we have, particularly because we know of at least 2 retirements in the upcoming year. And want to make sure that our transportation operation is supporting the rest of all of our schools and all our students, no matter what their needs are. But those are the priorities we want to set forth. Really, this first page being the top ones, and then the next second page being as we can.
Related kind of to some of our other smaller groups. Did I hear that we got another crossing guard on that?
I don't know, however many we may have gotten, we still need more.
I know we still need more, but I was pretty pleased to hear there was one at least veterans.
Oh, yes, that is true.
So that's.
Yes, I think that's accurate, yes.
Yeah.
I did hear that.
Okay, so as he said, we discussed these priorities in depth last meeting, so
Just wanted to show Laura that we changed the formatting here, so it should be clear. Okay, not because of your good suggestion.
Okay, so we need a motion to approve. Thank you. The budget of priorities so that superintendent can work with his team to flesh all that out and have it reflect the budget process.
Motion to accept the superintendent's priorities. Second.
Okay, budget priorities.
Budget priorities.
Budget priorities, okay. Moved and seconded, Keith is still with us, so, we need a roll call vote.
Mr. Minio,
Yes.
Mr. Melvin,
Yes.
Chair Clancy.
Yes.
Ms. Weason.
Yes.
Mr. McKee.
Yes.
Okay. Last item on deliberations and education issues, and I see Val Gilman, who's probably half asleep.
Yeah.
Or she's taking a nap and is back with us.
So, really, this is sort of a update and information for the committee about Essex Tech, Essex North Shore Agricultural Technical School, known as Essex Tech or NSAT. And
She's at home.
Val, do you want to
she can unmute and
unblock
show
yourself?
if she chooses.
if you choose, if you don't, we're okay with that too.
And so I just want to sort of just highlight to the committee what's going on. We found out probably 2 weeks ago that Essex North Shore Essex Tech was going to move towards an admissions allocation procedure that's lottery based for their grade 9 enrollment. You have this obviously in your packet, and that is part of that process. Excuse me, they were setting member community minimum targets. And that's necessary because when you have a lottery, you can't, the risk you face is you get, and they have, I think, more than a dozen communities, okay? And then others as well can apply. You can't, just by the nature of the lottery, end up having, of your 425 students, 300 come from one community, okay? You have to have some guidelines in terms of, or minimums, I should say, that are, at least this many come from each community.
I just want to acknowledge Val is with us, city councilor for a little while longer, as well as the city's representative that serves on the Essex Tech School Board. Welcome.
Thank you.
Hi, Val. So Val, I'm just going to summarize the process here, and really the purpose of tonight is to make sure the community knows this is happening and see if we can any questions that you want myself or Val to ask during the process. So there was going to be a vote by the school committee as exec earlier this month. Some member community superintendents, including myself, raised some concerns about that because we weren't yet fully informed about it. And so as exec school committee and the superintendent High Riccio, kindly, agreed, if it made sense to them to, just put a pause in the process for a little bit. And at that point, when, we knew there'd be some more time to give input and ask questions, that's when I wanted to bring school committees for your awareness to see if you have any questions you'd like us to ask or follow up on. Okay, so let me just go through part of the process here, not in depth, you have it, you read through it, but let me just share some of this. So you can just look at it on the screen and people in the public know what we're looking at. So again, you'll see, this. So this is the basics of the lottery procedure, which is new. So, and the lottery approaches that the regional voc tech schools are taking on is about responding to the statewide call for a more equitable enrollment process. We have a lottery for ours when we need them. This is a little more complicated because it's a lot more people. And so then there's lottery assignment is one part of the step. There are mission rounds. There's initial acceptance, so seats are offered, okay, to each community. So we have a minimum of 23 Gloucester applicants. Then the first 23 students who are taken by lottery from Gloucester will get in. And then the other ones are in a go into a pool to be filled through later rounds of lottery as after all the minimums are met. Okay. Then there is a waitlist process because they wait for 10 days to see if people decline. So, example here, Beverly's minimum target is 60, but 10 applicants decline. And then next 10 applicants from Beverly's lottery waitlist is accepted. So ultimately, I mean, part of this is that there's a lottery at each community. Okay, and each community has its own lottery. I mean, as a tech has a lottery for that community, I should say. And all the people who have applied from that one community, in our case, Gloucester, are then ordered by when their name came up. First through however many people have applied, basically. Okay, the first 23 of those for Gloucester would be accepted. And then there's a 10-day wait list while they consider whether or not they're going to go. And then there's subsequent rounds. Okay. This is where it becomes pretty important, okay, because one of the concerns I have, and other student members from member communities have is, minimum I get, but is there a maximum? Okay, I appreciate the minimum because it's sort of based on our averages. We've had about 25 kids per class, more or less, for the last few years. And I'm of two minds here, right? One is really want Gloucester kids to be educated at Gloucester High School, like that'll never change in my, for me. At the same time, we never want to prevent a family from going to whatever choice there is, right? For that family, it's right for that family. Okay, families that's a private school or a parochial school, or in this case, a regional tech. Okay, so like both those values exist. And lean towards the first one a little bit, but that's but both really are important, right? Everybody. The concerns I have, I think runs into round 3 here. So the example say if Nahant has no remaining applicants, but still has 3 until minimum target seats, those seats are reassigned to the next applicant. Okay. The overall at-large lottery waitlist. So if we have a longer waitlist, and some communities don't, or a number of communities don't have their minimums, they just start taking more and more Gloucester kids. Okay, and if it's getting to 25, 30, 35, 40, I think we get a little concerned. Okay, so I think one of the questions I would have is what are the limits here? Okay, as I said, has grown quite a bit in the last number of years, and are there designs for it to grow more? Okay, but it's hard, it's tough. I'm a little concerned about our number of kids coming from and being dependent upon what happens with other communities, okay? So that's a question I think, me and other students will have.
Can I ask you a question about that?
Sure, and also, we might, and Val also maybe be able to answer more than I can.
Right, well, I just wanna make sure I understand your concern. So your concern is that too many kids would get into the tech also, potentially.
Yeah.
So, but.
I mean, again, it's tempered by the notion that like, don't want to.
Right, no, but here's my question. I mean, do we have it? So you said around 25 go every year. How many, I mean, is that because that's the amount that are let in, or is that because that's how many apply? Like, tell me more about how many are applying in a year. Or how
I
many-
don't know those numbers, but.
Well, may I take a crack at this?
Yes,
That would
please.
be great. And if things get a little rowdy here, my dog has been patient and now all of a sudden he's becoming a little bit obnoxious. So bear with me. Kathy knows my dog very well. But anyway, thank you for inviting me, Superintendent. I appreciate it. And thank you, School Committee, for all the work that you're doing, and to Assistant Superintendent Pasquarello. So it's a pleasure to be here. This has been, we didn't really want this lottery. This was not something that the school committee at NZAT wanted to have to do. And what happened was that the DESC required us to do this. So I don't know what to do right now with my dog. So let me just see if I can go. If I go upstairs, I don't.
Val, you're fine. It's not bad. We can barely.
Not bad. Okay, then I'll be cool because he is really obnoxious when he's just nudgy. So what we did, we liked our old way. Our old way was to have people interviewed, and we included attendance, tardiness, not attendance, grades. We started merging A's and B's because we thought that too much weight on A's was unfair. So, that was a change of process that we did based on feedback that I got from Gloucester. And then we had our guidance counselor at the tech interview the students so that they could get a feel for how genuine their interest was in a CTE program. And that was a really good process, but we had to change it. So we spent many months last summer developing a 10-page document that included our procedure. We submitted it to the DESC in October. They accepted it. In the one area that we needed to put more work into was how we're going to delegate these numbers to our 17 districts that were part of the funding group when we had the two tech schools merge about 10 or 11 years ago. And so those are the district schools. I am going to give him a second ice cream. Hold on. And I'm going to put him outside until he's, hold on a sec. Sorry. Cooper, stop.
It's a goal. They like a lot of attention.
He was quiet for the first 3 hours when I was waiting. So thank you for laughing with me. So what we did was we submitted our process, our procedure, and we probably had 4 or 5 admissions committee meetings. I am the vice chair of the admissions committee. And on that committee are the 5 big districts. The 5 big districts are Beverly, Danvers, Gloucester, Peabody, and Salem. And so Gloucester is about 4.5% of the budget for the school with our 105 students. And our overall number has been very constant since I've been on the committee. This is my 8th or 9th year. When Melissa Texera was, when she first began as the person representing NSAT, we were about at that same number. So our numbers are pretty steady. So to answer Laura's question, what we did was we took the last 3 years of enrollment, and we had a year of 26, a year of 26, and another year of 18. And we added those 3 together, and that averages 23. Now, if you take a look at that 105 number, which has been really the number that's been constant for me in the last 4 or 5 years, every single year, 23 is actually lower than the average. And one of the reasons for that was that there was a dip 3 years ago in our oldest class that is still there, where there's some issues at O'Malley on attendance that created a lower number for that 1 year. So that brings back our average down to 23. The other big schools like Beverly is going to have a minimum target of 60, Danvers a minimum target of 60, Peabody a minimum target of 123, and Salem a minimum target of 48. So when we start this general lottery, you'll see that when Gloucester reaches a 23, we pause until those other schools get to their minimum number. And those numbers are all based on statistical averages of the last 3 years. So they're very detailed. In the 3 or 4 smaller district schools, which were one of those 17 that initially funded the school and part of this district, we are taking their lower numbers and we're allowing them to go up to 5. Some of their lower numbers are 2 or 3, and we're allowing them to go up to 5. Now, they might not go up to 5, but we felt a need to give them some fair representation because they've been part of the districts that funded the school, the MSBA process back when the school was being merged. So I hope that allows you to understand how these numbers are coming up with right now. This is a new process for us. We really didn't want to do this lottery, but we had to be compliant with the DESC. And we feel like this is very fair. I've probably attended 10 or 12 admissions subcommittee meetings where we just go over these numbers and we're trying to be extremely fair. And it just, I really don't think this is going to amount to an increase in students because statistically, this is very based on how many students are going to be drawn, and that's based on the average for the last 3 years enrollment. So I'm comfortable with this, but I think that these are all good questions. And, if the superintendents of some of these larger schools felt that there needs to be more involvement, then I think I'm glad that we're going to have this meeting on January 6th. Paul Lumberg, our new mayor, is going to drive up with me to attend. And, it is an open meeting if you'd like to come and sit in. But I think for the most, it will be a good opportunity to talk about these issues because, we are lucky because we have a Voc school at Gloucester High, and there are very few students that go into the areas at the tech that we cover at Gloucester High. So that's all good. And that's what we want, right? We really would like to see as many students as we can staying in Gloucester. But the tech adds a lot of extra curriculum classes that they wouldn't be able to get at Gloucester High. And the 105 or 106 students that are there are really doing really well, and vocational schooling is really important right now. And so that's kind of my summary. I've got lots of data here, and
I just want to, because Ben's issue wasn't, I really appreciate that, but my question to Ben, because Ben's concern seemed to be the other end, that you're concerned, if I'm understanding correctly, the other end, that maybe too many kids would go.
Yeah, I think the minimum is well crafted, well thought out, and reflects what we've been doing,
Right.
The unknown, I think, for me and other students is, well, what if now all of a sudden we're closely tied to whatever may or may not happen in other places? And if they're not hitting our minimums, then are we then required to make that up.
So that
No.
means just in practice,
Yeah.
like, say, every year, however many Gloucester like, 30 Gloucester kids generally apply, and generally 25 get in. I'm just.
Yeah, you're making it up, right?
I'm making that up.
Get in or actually choose.
Or
to
choose to go, right?
Yeah.
So what you're saying is in a world in which those 5 other spots potentially become available, your concern would be that more kids would choose to go there, potentially.
Yeah, and I understand, like, there's, I think where it makes sense, and it's historic as well, 25 plus or minus a couple, and that continues, that makes sense, okay? If it starts inching up and then inching up and inching up, I think there's real concern, and I guess part of it is Essex Tech thinking about that challenge,
Right.
Because I understand that benefits them, but it's challenged us.
Right.
We're paying for the students as well, of course, the city doesn't come out of our operating budget, comes out of the city budget,
Which
Right, but then it's.
Yeah, which also
that's
always
taken-
impacts our budget, I mean,
Right.
just did recently, that happens every year, so.
Right.
So those are real concerns, and I just want, and Val, I don't expect you to answer those tonight. What I'm trying to get is questions from the committee,
Right.
and just what we can think of, that we wanna make sure are asked either by us or other subsequent towns.
So, to Ben's point, Val, and it doesn't sound like there's an answer to it yet, but if the 4 schools or the 4 towns with the smallest sends, which are all 5s, if they were to only send 1 student from each of those, that would open up 16 seats. There'd be 16 open seats. How do those 16 open seats get dispersed? Is it in
The
there?
schools, so the schools that have the most,
The 4
pull
biggest schools, yeah.
would be the ones that would get the majority of those spots. So, let me just, I've got a list. I was so
Yeah, we're looking
organized
at it, yeah.
before my dog got me,
Peabody, Salem,
Gloucester and Danvers, Beverly.
Beverly, Amherst, and
Right,
Gloucester.
but.
So the polls are for Peabody, there are 241 applications. And so those would be 123 polls. Beverly has 147 applications, those would be 59 polls. Danvers has 120, those would be 57 polls. And Salem has 99, and those would be 47 polls. Gloucester has 75, and those would be 23 polls. So all those polls mean that those other towns are going to be in that queue for those extra spots. Statistically, percentage-wise, to be more frequently picked in that poll after the minimums are applied for, or after the schools, for example, to Bill's comment, that are under 5 and get 5, they might be extra spots there, right? So that's how those would be allocated. So statistically, the counselors that have been working on this, the adjustment counselors and our admissions head, have been working on the polls and actually simulating it, and we think that it's a very reliable method. So it's a great question. But I think it's going to work out very well with the way that we have it designated right now, just because of the statistical numbers. And I could share more of this, with you in writing if you'd like. But I think this is a good conversation because, I think we don't want to see this run away from us because it is a burden. But the good news is that our numbers have stayed very constant. And now we have a 5th program at Gloucester High, which I think is great. And I see this as being, nothing seems to be moving up. In the 23 number, like I said, if you take 106 and divide it by 4, 23 is 4 or 5 spots lower than the 106 average divided by 4. So, I think it's I'm comfortable with it. it's really helpful that I served on the school committee here in Gloucester before because I really understand these issues really well. And, and I always accept any feedback from any of you on things that we can do better. Like Kathy Clancy and Mayor Verger asked us to, when our students don't get accepted in Gloucester, they've added the programs at Gloucester High that the students should go back and look at Gloucester High. And that's actually in their rejection letters now. And that was because of feedback from both Kathy and Greg. So, we're willing to work with our school as partners. And these are all good questions. So the more you can understand, the more people can feel comfortable with this process. And like I said, this lottery is new to us. And
so just a question based on what you said, 75, there's 75 applications from Gloucester. I mean, that's the question for me, sorry. I appreciate, like, you've been working on this for so long, but you're saying that 75 kids from Gloucester apply and about 25 get in? Is that what you're saying?
well, for the lottery.
Not for the
minimum-
lottery. In the
Okay.
past, you said you had this number of applications and then the
Yeah,
number of polls. So
last year we had 20, for class of 2029, 26 students enrolled. Class of 2028, we had 26.
Laura's asking how many applied though, Belle.
You gave an application number for all those others.
Yeah, so Val, what would be helpful, and not tonight, but if you could get to the committee, just like the last few years, maybe 5 years, a number of applicants each year and a number of enrolled, that'd be really helpful.
Yeah.
Okay, applicants versus polls, okay.
And I think the other question, other students and I had as well was, I mean, over the last 6 years or so, Essex Tech has grown by about 400 students. And I was just at another new building you guys built recently, which is a very beautiful building, first of all. But the other question that we have is, does Essex Tech have any plans to grow further? That's something that we need to know and need to plan for. And that obviously would affect numbers. So.
Yep. So in 2025, there were 370 seats. In 2026, class of 2026, 367, 2027 year 373, 2028 396, and 2029 408. So there've been an extra 38 seats in the last 5 years that were added at the Tech. But I can get them specific to Gloucester based on the polls, and then I think this, and if any of you have any extra questions that you'd like to present at that meeting on January 5th, I'd suggest that you run it by Ben and share it with me and Mayor-elect Lemberg, so we can represent it at that meeting, because these are all good questions, and with answers, hopefully, we can all understand it, and the application deadline is January 10th for students. And we were hoping to get the lottery going on February 6th.
Yeah, so Belle, I have a question. When they did the kind of test lottery, did it end up that the communities kind of had their proportional enrollment? So if there was 10, say for the sake of argument, there's 20% more seats than the minimum number, right? Like everybody hits their minimum, and now there's other seats that are in the pot.
Yeah.
Is it more likely that the bigger school, Peabody, got more students on their list? Twice as many as as Beverly, which has 60. I mean, was it just, you know what I mean? Like if you bounce a ball and you let it go into 10 different things, right, in a popcorn machine, typically 10% would go in each one because it's random. And so I'm just wondering if this kind of bore out your the proportionality of the enrollment currently, or, you know, kind of recently at Essex Tech per community or similar. That's just a question about.
Okay, well, what I can do is I can cut this, when we get the Zoom tape of this, I can share this with our admissions team and they can, and then I can have a meeting before January 6th with them. So we could go over all of your questions, ones that maybe are more sophisticated than what I'm able to answer right now, but it's all valid.
I think just to say something out loud, and it's round three, on the sheet we've got, it explains it, which is clear. Round three and subsequent rounds, it's sort of that second bullet under round three that I think raises a lot of unknowns and questions. So, it's, if community lottery hasn't met a community hasn't met its wait list, hasn't met its minimum, then what happened? Just sort of, Bill, you voiced that as well, and you voiced that in a clearer way than I did. But sort of the question mark of if some communities haven't met their minimum target, what happens at that point? Right. So I think that's for me. I think that's where the sort of unknown comes.
Right. In my understanding, Ben, is that statistically, all those other schools that have a lot more pulls than we do are going to be more frequently pulled after when we get those extra spots for the at-large candidates. And that's my understanding of how that's going to work based on all the sessions I've, but I will ask them to look clearly at round three on that document. So.
Okay. I think Keith has a question.
Hey, Val, thanks for joining the session here. My question is, from my research, you have the option to do a weighted lottery. Is that correct? Is that the way you're proceeding?
Yeah, that's what this is. That's what this is.
Yeah, okay. And then so attendance is calculated into admissions?
No, we're no longer doing that.
Not at all.
No. What you have to do is you have to have passing grades, and you have to show that you're still enrolled in the school at the time when it's your graduation time to get ready to go to Essex Tech. So that's a criteria, and if those don't pass, then you will lose your spot, and that spot will go to the next candidate that's in the lottery.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make
So
sense?
so the only criteria is a passing grade from like the middle of 7th grade to through 8th?
No, it's the passing year for the 9th grade. Let me I'll get the policy. Hold on.
Students are accepted into the 9th grade or 10th grade? What do you mean by 9th
No,
grade?
they're typically, it's 9th grade, but then there's some openings in the 10th grade class, so they can also offer some 10th graders as well. But it's mostly the 9th grade that we're looking at here. Eligibility, hold on. Grade 9 applicants' initial offers or acceptance are considered conditional pending NSAT's receipt and review of students' current school year final grade report or transcript and receipt of verified student residencies aligned to the residency as noted on the student's application.
So you're still doing that?
Yep. Conditionally accepted students may only be enrolled in NSATs if they've been promoted to the grade they are seeking to enter. Promotion is defined as successfully passing the 4 core content subject classes in the current grade. Is there something?
I thought that you have the option of doing a weighted lottery or non-weighted lottery. So that's why I was asking the question.
We have chosen this because of the district percentages of statistics and being fair to all the districts that have supported us in this school. And it's based on the numbers and the averages. And we felt that that was a more fair way. And it's pretty statistically valid based on the number of students that apply and get accepted.
So Val, thank you very much for coming tonight and also waiting for so long. We appreciate that. You've got more stamina than your dog, obviously. But do appreciate you being here. And we'll get you some questions. And I also thank you very much for the follow-up you said you could do to help us out, understand a little bit better.
Thank you, Val.
And I'm always willing to come to meetings and speak. Next time I'll probably come to your meeting so Cooper doesn't annoy me like he's done tonight. But he's very cute, as Kathy will tell you, particularly when the Patriots score and everybody gets excited and Cooper starts barking like crazy. So,
all right, thanks, Val.
Thank you all for doing such a great job. I appreciate it.
Okay, the last item of business is acceptance of grants under action. And I am going to move these all in the same motion. They're all Gloucester Education Foundation. I move that we accept the following grants from the Gloucester Education Foundation. East Veterans Fifth Grade Play Grant in the amount of $3,500. Beeman Fifth Grade Play Grant in the amount of $2,500. Plum Cove Fourth and Fifth Grade Play Grant in the amount of $2,500. O'Malley Lanes Coven Theater Company Grant in the amount of $4,302. And GH, the Gloucester High School Drone Operator Course Grant in the amount of $4,569. I so moved.
Second.
Okay. Moved and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Minio,
Yes.
Mr. Melvin.
Yes.
Chair Clancy.
Yes.
Ms. Weason.
Yes.
Mr. McKee.
Yes.
That concludes our regular business. The mayor left without me being able to say anything, but I just wanted to thank, and we can say whatever we want, but I just want to thank and say what a pleasure it's been to work with Jeremy and Keith, and obviously Greg in his role on the school committee. And so thank you. It's been a pleasure, and I know we'll see you around, and hopefully that's not the last the school committee hears from you.
Well,
Absolutely.
I'm still have students in the system, so you'll see me around.
Okay.
Thank you, Patty.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I'm very, very pleased.
Thanks,
both-
Kat. Yeah, thanks,
I'm
Kathy.
very pleased both of you subs, your students in the system, so we will see you around.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Yes, that's really a big deal. So, but thank you very much for all your thanks for your leadership and support of our schools.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Minio,
Yes.
Mr. Melvin.
Yes.
Chair Clancy.
Yes.
Ms. Weason.
Yes.
Mr. McKee.
Yes.
Okay, that concludes our meeting. Thank you all for hanging in there if you did. And good night.
Night.
Good night.